The wind howled through the jagged peaks of the Blackthorn Pack's territory, carrying the scent of pine and the promise of winter. Lyra Blackthorn stood on the balcony of the Pack's great hall, her silver hair catching the moonlight as she gazed over the sprawling forest below. At 22, she was the pride of her father, Alpha Tauren, a towering figure whose iron rule had kept their pack dominant for decades. But tonight, Lyra's heart was heavy, her green eyes clouded with unease. The great hall buzzed with preparations for the summit, a gathering of neighboring packs to secure alliances, and her future. Lyra. Tauren's voice boomed from the hall's entrance, sharp enough to cut through her thoughts. She turned, smoothing her expression into one of calm obedience. Her father strode toward her, his broad shoulders filling the doorway, his graying beard framing a face etched with authority. "You're needed inside. The elders are waiting." Lyra adjusted the furs draped over her shoulders, the weight of her role as the alpha's air pressing harder than the pelts. "I'm coming, father," she said, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. She followed him into the hall, where the air was thick with the scents of polished wood, roasted meat, and the musky presence of the pack's council. The elders sat around a massive oak table, their weathered faces lit by flickering torches. At the head, Tauren took his seat, gesturing for Lyra to stand beside him. "The summit begins in 3 days," he announced, his deep voice commanding silence. "Alphas from the Ironclaw, Redfang, and Shadowmoor packs will join us." "Lyra, you know what this means." Her throat tightened. She did know. For months, Tauren had spoken of little else. A marriage to seal an alliance, to strengthen Blackthorn against the growing threat of rogue wolves encroaching on their borders. Lyra forced a nod. "Yes, father." "To unite the packs." Elder Mara, a sharp-eyed woman with silver-streaked hair, leaned forward. "The Ironclaw Alpha, Zane, is the strongest candidate. His pack's warriors would bolster our defenses." "Zane is a brute," Lyra said before she could stop herself, her tone sharper than intended. The table fell silent, and she felt Tauren's gaze bore into her. "Zane is powerful," Tauren corrected, his voice low but edged with warning. "And power is what keeps us safe. You will meet him, Lyra, and you will be gracious." Lyra bit back a retort, her fingers curling into fists at her sides. She knew better than to argue publicly, but the thought of marrying Zane, a man rumored to rule through fear, made her skin crawl. "Of course," she said, forcing a smile. "I'll do my duty." As the meeting droned on, discussing logistics and guest quarters, Lyra's mind wandered. She was no stranger to duty, raised to lead, to fight, to embody the strength of an Alpha's bloodline. But she longed for something more, a choice, a life beyond politics. The mate bond, that sacred pull her mother had once described, was a distant dream. Her mother, long dead, had spoken of a connection that burned brighter than any obligation. Lyra wondered if she'd ever feel it. "Lyra," Tauren said, snapping her back to the present. "You'll greet the Alphas when they arrive. Make them feel welcome." "Yes, father," she replied, her voice a practiced mask. As the elders dispersed, she slipped back to the balcony, needing air. The forest stretched endlessly before her, a reminder of the world beyond her father's plans. Somewhere out there, she thought, there has to be more. Magnus Thorn crouched low in the underbrush, his dark hair blending with the shadows as he tracked a deer through the dense forest. His muscles tensed, every sense honed to the rustle of leaves and the faint scent of prey. At 24, he was one of the Blackthorn Pack's best trackers, despite his status as an Omega's son. His mother, Alara, had been disgraced years ago, stripped of rank for defying Alpha Tauren. The shame clung to Magnus like a second skin, marking him as an outcast among his own. He paused, catching a new scent on the wind, not the deer, but something sweeter, sharper, like wild honeysuckle and storm-charged air. His wolf stirred, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Magnus frowned, shaking off the distraction. He couldn't afford to lose focus. The pack relied on his hunts to supplement their stores before the summit. "Got you," he muttered, spotting the deer through a gap in the trees. He moved silently, his lean frame gliding over roots and rocks. But as he drew his bow, that scent hit him again, stronger now, pulling at something deep within. His aim faltered, the arrow skimming wide. The deer bolted. Damn it, Magnus hissed, lowering his bow. He stood, brushing dirt from his worn leather tunic, and scanned the forest. The scent wasn't prey, it was a wolf, female and powerful. His heart quickened, though he couldn't place why. Magnus, a voice called, rough but familiar. Kale, his only friend, emerged from the trees, his lanky frame and crooked grin unmistakable. The rogue wolf, tolerated by the pack for his scouting skills, carried a brace of rabbits slung over his shoulder. Missed another one? You're slipping. It wasn't my fault, Magnus said, slinging his bow across his back. Something's off. You smell that? Kale sniffed the air, his amber eyes narrowing. Honeysuckle? That's no ordinary wolf. He grinned, nudging Magnus. Maybe your mate's out there, waiting to sweep you off your feet. Magnus snorted, shoving Kale lightly. Don't start. I don't have time for fairy tales. But the words felt hollow. That scent lingered, tugging at his wolf, urging him to find its source. He pushed it down, focusing on Kale. You're back early. What did you find on the border? Kale's grin faded. Rogues. More than usual. They're getting bold, sniffing around our eastern edge. Torin's gonna want a report. Magnus' jaw tightened. Let the warriors handle it. I'm just the tracker. His tone was bitter, a reminder of his place. No matter how skilled he was, the pack saw him as Alara's son. Tainted, unworthy. Kale clapped a hand on his shoulder. You're more than they give you credit for. Come on, let's get back before they send a search party. As they trekked toward the pack's settlement, Magnus couldn't shake that scent. It followed him, a whisper of something he couldn't name. By the time they reached the outskirts, the great hall loomed ahead, its torches casting long shadows. A crowd was gathering, likely for the summit preparations. Magnus hesitated, his gaze drawn to the balcony where a figure stood, silver hair gleaming under the moon. Who's that? Kale asked, following his stare. Magnus didn't answer. He didn't need to. His wolf knew, even if his mind refused to accept it. Lyra Blackthorn, the Alpha's daughter. Untouchable. And yet, that scent, her scent, called to him like a beacon. The great hall was a sea of noise and movement, wolves mingling as they prepared for the summit. Lyra stood at her father's side, her posture regal but her mind restless. The air was thick with the sense of pack members, sweat, fur, and anticipation, but one scent cut through it all, sharp and unfamiliar, like cedar and earth after rain. Her wolf stirred, a low whine echoing in her chest. Lyra, focus, Torin murmured, his hand on her shoulder as he guided her toward the center of the hall. The elders want you to address the pack. She nodded, forcing her attention to the task. The crowd parted as she stepped forward, her voice carrying over the murmurs. Blackthorn Pack, she began, her tone clear and strong. We stand at a turning point. The summit will secure our future, strengthen our borders, and ensure our pack's legacy. I ask for your unity and strength in the days ahead. The pack roared in approval, but Lyra's words felt hollow. Unity meant sacrifice, her sacrifice. As she stepped back, that scent hit her again, stronger now, pulling her gaze across the room. Her eyes locked onto a man near the edge of the crowd, his dark hair falling over sharp blue eyes, his lean frame tense, as if ready to bolt. Magnus Thorn, the Omega's son. She'd seen him before, always on the fringes, but now, a jolt shot through her, like lightning striking her core. Her wolf howled, the mate bond snapping into place with a force that stole her breath. Magnus' eyes widened, his own wolf clearly reacting. For a moment, the world narrowed to just them, the noise of the hall fading to a dull roar. Lyra, Torin's voice broke the spell. She tore her gaze away, her heart pounding. What's wrong? Nothing, she said quickly, forcing a smile. Just the crowd. It's overwhelming. He frowned but nodded, turning to address an elder. Lyra risked another glance at Magnus. He was still watching her, his expression a mix of shock and something deeper, longing, maybe, or fear. She felt it too, the pull of the bond, undeniable and dangerous. He was an Omega's son, disgraced, forbidden. She was the Alpha's heir, promised to another. This couldn't happen. As the gathering dispersed, Lyra slipped through the crowd, needing air, needing space. She stepped into the cool night, her breath visible in the chill. Footsteps crunched behind her, and she turned to find Magnus, his face half-shadowed but his eyes burning. "You felt it," he said, his voice low, almost accusing. "The bond." Lyra's pulse raced. "We can't. Magnus, you know who I am. Who you are." "I know," he said, stepping closer, his scent enveloping her. "But it's real. You can't deny it." "I have to," she whispered, her voice breaking. "My father, the pack, they'll never allow this." Magnus' jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. "Then what do we do?" She wanted to say they'd ignore it, sever it, pretend it never happened. But her wolf clawed at her, desperate for him. "I don't know," she admitted. "But we can't be seen together. Not now." He nodded, his expression hard but his eyes soft. "I'll stay away. For now." As he melted into the shadows, Lyra's heart ached. The bond pulsed, a living thing, binding her to a man she could never have. The forest was alive with the sounds of night, crickets chirping, owls hooting, the rustle of leaves underfoot. Lyra moved silently through the trees, her dark cloak blending with the shadows. 3 nights had passed since the mate bond snapped, and she hadn't slept. The pull toward Magnus a constant ache. She'd told herself to stay away, to focus on the summit, but her wolf had other plans. She reached a clearing by a narrow stream, its waters glinting under the moon. Magnus was already there, leaning against a pine, his bow slung across his back. He straightened as she approached, his eyes searching hers. "You came," he said, his voice soft but laced with relief. "I shouldn't have," Lyra replied, stopping a few feet away. "This is reckless." "Then why are you here?" His tone wasn't challenging, just curious, and it disarmed her. She sighed, wrapping her arms around herself. "I can't stop thinking about you. The bond, it's like it's burning me from the inside." Magnus stepped closer, his scent wrapping around her like a warm blanket. "I feel it too. Every second, Lyra. It's like you're in my blood." She shook her head, torn between desire and duty. "My father's set on marrying me to Zane. The summit's tomorrow, and he'll be here. If anyone finds out about us, they won't," Magnus said firmly. "Not if we're careful." "Careful?" Lyra laughed, a bitter edge to it. "You think we can hide a mate bond? Every wolf in the pack will smell it if we're not careful." He reached for her hand, his touch sending a spark through her. "Then we'll be careful. We'll meet like this, away from the pack. Just don't ask me to walk away from you." "I can't." Lyra's resolve wavered. She looked into his eyes, seeing the same struggle she felt. "What are we doing, Magnus? This could destroy us both." "Maybe," he said, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "But I'd rather burn with you than live without you." The words broke something in her. She closed the distance between them, her lips finding his in a desperate, searing kiss. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her close, and for a moment, the world was just them. The bond, the heat, the promise of something real. When they parted, breathless, Lyra rested her forehead against his. "We can't keep doing this," she whispered. "But we will," Magnus said, a quiet certainty in his voice. "Until we find a way." They stayed in the clearing until dawn's first light threatened, stealing moments they both knew could cost them everything. The summit began with a feast. The great hall transformed into a display of Blackthorn's strength. Long tables groaned under platters of venison, wild boar, and honeyed bread, while musicians played lively tunes on bone flutes and drums. Lyra sat at the high table beside her father, her posture perfect, but her mind elsewhere. Magnus' kiss lingered on her lips, a secret she guarded as fiercely as she hid her racing heart. Torin raised a goblet, his voice silencing the hall. "To our guests, the alphas of Ironclaw, Redfang, and Shadowmoor. May this summit forge bonds that last generations." The crowd cheered, but Lyra's eyes drifted to the Ironclaw delegation. Zane, their alpha, was impossible to miss, a hulking man with a shaved head and a scar running from brow to jaw. His dark eyes locked onto her, and she suppressed a shudder. He didn't smile, but his gaze was possessive, as if she were already his. "Lyra," Torin said, leaning close, "Zane has requested a private audience after the feast. You'll meet him in the council chamber." Her stomach twisted. "Father, I barely know him. Can't we?" "This isn't a discussion," Torin cut in, his tone final. "He's the strongest match. Ironclaw's warriors could turn the tide against the rogues. You'll do what's best for the pack." Lyra nodded, her throat tight. She glanced across the hall, where Magnus stood near the back, serving as a guard for the event. His eyes met hers, a flicker of pain passing between them. She looked away, focusing on her plate. After the feast, Lyra followed Torin to the council chamber, a stone-walled room lit by a single chandelier. Zane was already there, his massive frame dominating the space. He bowed slightly, but his smirk was anything but deferential. "Lady Lyra," he said, his voice a low rumble. "You're as beautiful as they say. A fitting mate for an alpha." She forced a polite smile. "Thank you, Alpha Zane. I'm honored by your interest." He stepped closer, his scent overwhelming. Iron and ash, nothing like Magnus' comforting cedar. "Let's skip the pleasantries. I want Blackthorn's alliance. And you're the key. Marry me, and our packs will be unstoppable." Lyra's skin prickled. "My father decides my match," she said carefully. "But I'll consider your proposal." Zane's eyes narrowed. "Consider quickly. I don't like to wait." He leaned in, his voice dropping. "And I always get what I want." She held his gaze, refusing to flinch. "We'll see, Alpha." As Zane left, Torin entered, his expression unreadable. "He's bold," he said. "But bold is what we need. The rogues are massing Lyra. We can't afford weakness." "I'm not weak," she snapped, unable to hold back. "But I'm not a pawn either." Torin's eyes softened, a rare crack in his armor. "You're my daughter. I want you safe, and I want this pack strong. Sometimes that means hard choices." Lyra swallowed her anger, knowing he wouldn't bend. "I understand," she said, but her thoughts were with Magnus, waiting in the shadows, and the bond that threatened to unravel everything. The forest was cloaked in pre-dawn mist, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and pine. Magnus Thorn crouched near a rocky outcrop, his bow resting across his knees as he waited for Kale to return from scouting the eastern border. The summit's second day loomed, and with it, the weight of Lyra's impending betrothal. The mate bond pulsed in his chest, a constant reminder of her, a pull he couldn't ignore, no matter how dangerous. His thoughts were interrupted by the crunch of boots on gravel. Kale emerged from the fog, his lanky frame moving with the easy grace of a wolf accustomed to the wild. His amber eyes glinted with mischief, but his expression was grim. "You look like you haven't slept in days," Kale said, tossing a water skin to Magnus. "Let me guess, thinking about a certain alpha's daughter." Magnus caught the skin, taking a long drink before wiping his mouth. "Keep your voice down," he muttered, glancing around. The forest was empty, but he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. "It's not that simple, Kale. Not simple." Kale snorted, leaning against a tree. "You're mated to Lyra Blackthorn, the pack's golden girl, and she's about to be handed off to that iron claw brute. I'd say it's pretty damn complicated." Magnus' jaw tightened. "She's not being handed off yet. We're figuring it out." Kale raised an eyebrow. "Figuring it out? You mean sneaking around, stealing kisses in the dark? That's a death sentence, my friend, and you know it." Magnus stood, slinging his bow over his shoulder. "What do you want me to do? Walk away? The bond won't let me. It's like she's part of me now." Kale's grin faded, replaced by a rare seriousness. "I get it. The bond's no joke. But you're playing with fire. Torin's got eyes everywhere. And Zane's not the type to share. You need a plan, Magnus, not just hope." Magnus ran a hand through his dark hair, frustration simmering. "I know. But what plan? Run? They'd hunt us down. Fight. I'm one man against a pack. Tell me, Kale, what's the move?" Kale hesitated, his gaze drifting to the horizon. "There's talk among the rogues. They're organizing, Magnus. Not just scavenging anymore. They've got a leader, someone strong enough to challenge Torin. If you and Lyra needed a place to go, no." Magnus cut in, his voice hard. "I'm not dragging Lyra into a rogue camp. She's the Alpha's heir, not a fugitive." Kale shrugged, but his eyes were sharp. "Suit yourself. But the pack's not as united as Torin thinks. Some of the lower ranks, Omegas, Hunters, even a few warriors, they're tired of his iron fist. If you and Lyra stood up, you might find allies." Magnus froze, the words sinking in. Rebellion. It was a dangerous thought, one that could cost him everything. But the idea of a pack where he and Lyra could be together, free from Torin's control, it was tempting. "You're talking treason," he said quietly. Kale smirked. "I'm talking survival. Think about it. Now, come on, We've got a border to check before the summit starts. As they moved through the forest, Magnus' mind churned. Kale's words had planted a seed, one he wasn't sure he could ignore. By the time they reached the settlement, the sun was rising, casting golden light over the great hall. Lyra would be there soon, playing her role as the dutiful heir. The thought of her facing Zane again made his wolf growl. "Keep your head down today," Kale said as they parted ways. "And for God's sake, don't do anything stupid." Magnus didn't reply. Stupid or not, he knew he'd find a way to see Lyra. He had to. Lyra stood in the great hall's antechamber, her hands smoothing the deep blue gown her father had insisted she wear for the summit's formal talks. The fabric clung to her curves, a stark contrast to her usual leathers, and she felt exposed. Like a prize on display. The mate bond thrummed in her chest, pulling her thoughts to Magnus. She hadn't seen him since their meeting in the clearing, but his scent, cedar and earth, lingered in her memory, as vivid as if he were standing beside her. "Lyra." Elder Mara's voice snapped her back to the present. The older woman approached, her silver-streaked hair pulled into a tight braid. "You're late. The alphas are already seated." "I'm sorry," Lyra said, forcing a smile. "I was preparing." Mara's sharp eyes narrowed, but she only nodded. "Come. Your father expects you to shine today." Lyra followed Mara into the main hall, where the air was thick with tension. Torin sat at the head of a long table, flanked by the visiting alphas. Zane's dark gaze locked onto her immediately, his scarred face unreadable but his presence oppressive. The Red Fang Alpha, a wiry man named Gavin, offered a polite nod, while the Shadowmoor Alpha, a quiet woman called Rhea, studied Lyra with keen interest. "Lyra," Torin said, gesturing to the seat beside him. "Join us." She took her place, her posture perfect despite the churning in her stomach. The talks began, a blur of trade agreements, border disputes, and rogue threats. Lyra listened, offering measured input when asked, but her mind was elsewhere. She could feel Magnus nearby, his scent faint but unmistakable, likely guarding the hall's perimeter. The bond tugged at her, urging her to find him. "Lyra," Zane's voice cut through her thoughts, low and deliberate. "Your father tells me you're a skilled fighter. Perhaps you'd spar with my warriors later? Show us Blackthorn's strength." The table fell silent, all eyes on her. Lyra met Zane's gaze, reading the challenge in it. "I'd be happy to demonstrate," she said coolly. "Though I hope your warriors can keep up." A ripple of laughter broke the tension, but Zane's smile was predatory. "I look forward to it." As the talks dragged on, Lyra's restlessness grew. When Torin called a recess, she slipped out, claiming a need for air. She moved quickly, her gown swishing as she headed for the forest's edge, where she knew Magnus would be patrolling. The bond guided her, a beacon in the chaos. She found him by a cluster of oaks, his lean frame tense as he scanned the trees. He turned at her approach, his blue eyes widening. "Lyra, what are you doing here? If someone sees, I don't care," she said, stepping closer. "I needed to see you. This summit, Zane, my father, it's suffocating me." Magnus' expression softened, but he glanced around, wary. "You're playing a dangerous game. Zane's watching you like a hawk." "Let him watch," Lyra said, her voice fierce. "I'm not his. I'm—" She stopped, the words catching in her throat. "Yours," she wanted to say, but the weight of it terrified her. Magnus closed the distance, his hand brushing her arm. "You're mine," he said quietly, finishing her thought. "And I'm yours. Bond or no bond. Lyra, I choose you." Her breath hitched, and before she could think, she leaned in, her lips meeting his. The kiss was fire, desperate and consuming. Every stolen moment poured into it. His hands cupped her face, pulling her closer, and for a heartbeat, the world was theirs. A twig snapped nearby, and they broke apart, hearts racing. Magnus pushed Lyra behind him, his bow drawn in an instant. "Who's there?" he called, his voice low and dangerous. Silence. Then a patrol wolf, one of Torin's enforcers, named Brant, stepped into view. "Just checking the perimeter," Brant said, his eyes narrowing as he took in Lyra's flushed face and Magnus' defensive stance. "Everything all right, Lady Lyra?" "Fine," Lyra said quickly, stepping forward. "I was just getting some air. Magnus was escorting me." Brant's gaze lingered, but he nodded. "Best get back to the hall, my lady. Your father's looking for you." As Brant disappeared into the trees, Lyra let out a shaky breath. That was too close. Magnus lowered his bow, his jaw tight. We can't keep doing this, Lyra. Not here. Then where? She demanded, her voice breaking. I can't stay away from you, Magnus. I won't. He pulled her into his arms, his voice a whisper against her hair. We'll find a way. I swear it. The summit's third day dawned gray and cold, the sky heavy with the threat of snow. Lyra sat through another round of talks, her mind replaying the near disaster with Brant. She'd returned to the hall just in time to avoid suspicion, but the enforcer's knowing look haunted her. She couldn't afford another mistake, not with Zane's eyes following her every move. The talks had shifted to the rogue threat, a topic that set everyone on edge. Torrhen's voice was grim as he addressed the table. Our scouts report a rogue camp forming in the eastern valleys. They're organized, armed, and growing. We need a united front to crush them. Gavin, the Red Fang Alpha, leaned forward. My pack's lost 3 hunters to rogue ambushes this month. We'll join you, but we need resources, food, weapons. Rhea, the Shadowmoor Alpha, nodded. My wolves can offer stealth and intelligence, but we'll need Blackthorn's warriors to back us. Zane's scarred face twisted into a smirk. Ironclaw doesn't need help. We'll handle the rogues ourselves, after we secure this alliance. His gaze slid to Lyra, deliberate and possessive. Torrhen's expression didn't change, but Lyra felt his tension. The alliance is our priority, he said. Lyra's betrothal will seal it. We'll announce the match before the summit ends. Lyra's heart sank, her hands clenching under the table. She wanted to scream, to run, but she forced herself to stay calm. Father, she said, her voice steady. May I speak? Torrhen raised an eyebrow, but nodded. Go on. She stood, addressing the room. I understand the need for unity. But this alliance must be built on trust, not just power. I'll do my duty, but I ask for time to know my future mate. A rushed match serves no one. The room was silent, the alphas exchanging glances. Rhea's lips curved in a faint smile, while Gavin looked thoughtful. Zane, however, leaned back, his eyes narrowing. Time? Or are you stalling, Lady Lyra? Enough. Torrhen cut in, his tone final. Lyra speaks wisely. We'll continue discussions tomorrow. As the meeting broke, Lyra slipped away, her heart pounding. She'd bought time, but it wouldn't last. She needed Magnus, needed his strength to face what was coming. She found him outside, repairing a broken fence near the settlement's edge. His shirt was damp with sweat, his muscles flexing as he worked. The sight of him steadied her, even as it set her pulse racing. Magnus, she called softly, keeping her distance. To avoid suspicion that he looked up, his blue eyes softening. You shouldn't be here. Brant's been sniffing around, asking questions. I know, she said, stepping closer. But I had to tell you. Torrhen's pushing for the betrothal. Zane's the frontrunner. I don't know how much longer. We can hide. Magnus set down his tools, his expression fierce. Then we don't hide. We tell them, Lyra. The bond's real, they can't deny it. They can, she said, her voice trembling. They will. My father would rather see me dead than mated to an Omega's son. Magnus flinched, but his resolve didn't waver. Then we leave. Tonight. We'll find a place, somewhere they can't touch us. Lyra's breath caught. Run? The idea was madness, but the bond urged her to say yes. I can't abandon my pack, she said finally. Not yet. But I won't marry Zane. I swear it. Magnus nodded, his hand brushing hers briefly. Then we fight. Whatever it takes. Lyra woke with a start, her skin flushed and her heart racing. The air in her chamber felt stifling, her body restless in a way she couldn't explain. She threw off her furs, pacing the stone floor as dawn's light crept through the window. Something was wrong. Her wolf was agitated, her senses heightened. Then it hit her. Her heat was coming, and it was early. Panic surged through her. A she-wolf's heat was a vulnerable time, her scent drawing every unmated male within miles. Worse, it would amplify the mate bond, making it nearly impossible to hide her connection to Magnus. If Zane or her father caught even a hint of it, she dressed quickly, pulling on her leathers and a cloak to mask her scent as best she could. She needed to find Magnus, to warn him. She slipped out of the great hall, avoiding the early rising servants, and headed for the forest where she knew he'd be training. She found him sparring with Kale, their wooden staffs clacking in a blur of motion. Magnus moved with lethal grace, his lean frame dodging Kale's strikes with ease. He froze when he saw her, his nostrils flaring as he caught her scent. "Lyra," he said, dropping his staff. "What's wrong?" Kale glanced between them, his grin knowing. "I'll, check the perimeter. You two talk." As Kale disappeared, Lyra stepped closer, her voice low. "My heat's coming. Early. I can feel it, Magnus. If it hits during the summit." Magnus' eyes darkened, his wolf rising to the surface. "How long do we have?" "A day, maybe two," she said, her hands trembling. "I can't be around Zane or the others when it starts. They'll know. They'll smell you on me." Magnus cursed, running a hand through his hair. "We need to mask it. There are herbs, moonroot, sage. My mother used them once. I can get them." "It won't be enough," Lyra said, her voice breaking. "The bond's too strong. If I'm near you, I won't be able to control myself." He stepped closer, his hands gripping her shoulders. "Then we'll stay apart. I'll leave, Lyra. I'll go to the border, keep my distance until it passes." "No," she said, her eyes flashing. "I can't do this without you. I need you, Magnus." His expression softened, but his voice was firm. "You're stronger than you think. You'll get through this, and I'll be back as soon as it's safe." Lyra nodded, though her heart ached at the thought of him leaving. "Promise me you'll be careful." "The rogues, I can handle rogues," he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Just promise me you'll stay away from Zane." "I'll try," she said, but they both knew it wouldn't be easy. As Magnus pulled her into a brief, fierce embrace, Lyra clung to him, memorizing his scent, his warmth. The heat was coming, and with it, a storm they might not survive. The summit's final day was a blur of ceremonies and feasts, but Lyra moved through it like a ghost. Her skin burned, her senses overwhelmed by the early stirrings of her heat. She doused herself in sage oil, hoping to dull her scent, but it was a flimsy shield. Every glance from Zane felt like a blade, his dark eyes too knowing, too hungry. Magnus had left at dawn, slipping away with Kale to scout the border. The distance eased the bond's pull, but left her hollow, her wolf whining for him. She stood now in the great hall, watching as Torin toasted the visiting alphas. The betrothal announcement loomed, a noose tightening around her neck. "Lyra," Elder Mara said, approaching with a frown. "You look pale. Are you unwell?" "Just tired," Lyra lied, forcing a smile. "The summit's been demanding." Mara's gaze lingered, but she nodded. "Stay sharp. Your father's counting on you." As Mara moved away, Zane appeared at Lyra's side, his presence like a storm cloud. "You're quiet today," he said, his voice low, nervous about the announcement. Lyra met his gaze, her chin lifting. "I'm not nervous. I'm ready to do what's best for my pack." His smirk was cold. "Good. Because I've spoken with Torin. Ironclaw and Blackthorn will be joined. Through us." Her stomach twisted, but she kept her expression neutral. "Nothing's decided yet." "It will be," Zane said, leaning closer. His nostrils flared, and for a moment, she feared he'd caught Magnus' scent. "You can't run from this, Lyra." Before she could respond, Torin called her to the high table. "Lyra, a word." She followed him to a quiet corner, her heart pounding. "Father, please. Don't rush this. I need." "Enough," Torin said, his voice hard. "Zane's the best choice. You'll marry him, and we'll end this rogue threat together. That's final." Lyra's eyes burned, but she nodded, knowing argument was futile. As Torin returned to the feast, she slipped outside, needing air. The forest called to her, a refuge from the chaos. She didn't expect to find Magnus there, waiting by the stream where they'd kissed. "You're back," she breathed, rushing to him. "You shouldn't be here." "My heat. I couldn't stay away," he said, his voice rough. "Kale's covering for me, but I had to see you." "Lyra, I can't let you marry him." She clung to him, her resolve crumbling. "I won't. I'll fight it, Magnus. I'll find a way." He pulled back, his eyes fierce. "Then we're in this together. No matter what it costs, I'll protect you. I promise." As they held each other, the bond flared, a vow sealed in the face of impossible odds. The summit would end, but their fight was just beginning. The air in Lyra's chamber was stifling, heavy with the scent of sage and moonroot she'd burned to mask her growing heat. It wasn't enough. Her skin burned, her pulse raced, and every nerve hummed with a desperate need she couldn't quell. The summit had ended hours ago, the visiting alphas departing with promises of alliances, and Zane's lingering, possessive stare. Lyra paced the stone floor, her nightgown clinging to her sweat-dampened skin. Her heat had come, earlier and fiercer than she'd feared, and with it, the mate bond's pull toward Magnus was a tidal wave. She pressed her hands to her face, trying to steady her breathing. "Get a grip," she muttered, but her wolf was restless, clawing at her restraint. She needed Magnus, his touch, his scent, his presence. The thought of him, out there in the forest, sent a shiver through her. She couldn't stay here, not when every wolf in the great hall might smell her condition that a knock at her door made her freeze. "Lyra." It was Elder Mara, her voice sharp with concern. "Are you all right? You missed the farewell feast." "I'm fine," Lyra called, her voice strained. "Just not feeling well. I need rest." Mara hesitated, then said, "Open the door, child. Let me see you." Panic surged. Mara's nose would catch the heat's scent in an instant. "Please, Elder, I'll be fine by morning. I just need sleep." A long pause, then Mara's footsteps retreated. Lyra exhaled, but the relief was fleeting. She couldn't stay in the hall, not with her heat screaming through her veins. She grabbed her cloak, doused herself with more sage oil, and slipped out through a servant's passage, her heart pounding as she headed for the forest. The night was cold, the moon a silver sliver above the trees. Lyra moved quickly, her senses, guiding her to the hidden cave where she and Magnus had met before. He was there, waiting, his dark hair falling into his eyes as he paced the rocky entrance. His head snapped up as she approached, his nostrils flaring. "Lyra," he said, his voice rough with worry. "You shouldn't be here. Your heat." "I had to," she interrupted, stepping closer. His cedar and earth scent enveloped her, intensifying the fire in her blood. "I can't stay in the hall. They'll know, Magnus. They'll smell it." He cursed, running a hand through his hair. "I told you I'd stay away. This is too dangerous." "I don't care," she said, her voice breaking. "I need you. The bond, it's too much. I can't fight it alone." Magnus' eyes darkened, his wolf rising to meet hers. "Lyra, if we give in, there's no going back. You know what this could mean." She reached for him, her hands trembling as they gripped his tunic. "I know, but I can't pretend anymore. I choose you, Magnus. Bond or no bond." He groaned, his restraint crumbling as he pulled her into his arms. The kiss was desperate, a clash of need and fear, and Lyra melted into it, her body pressed against his. They stumbled into the cave, the cold stone walls a stark contrast to the heat between them. The world faded, leaving only the bond, the pull, the inevitable. They gave in, their wolves claiming what the pack would never allow. Dawn broke over the Blackthorn territory, painting the forest in hues of gold and gray. Lyra lay curled against Magnus in the cave, their clothes strewn across the floor, the air heavy with their mingled scents. Her heat had subsided, leaving her exhausted but clear-headed and terrified. The mate bond hummed, stronger now, a living thread binding them. But with it came the weight of what they'd done. Magnus stirred, his arm tightening around her. "You're awake," he murmured, his voice soft but laced with tension. "You okay?" Lyra sat up, pulling her cloak around her. "No," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "What we did, Magnus, if anyone finds out, they won't," he said, sitting up beside her. His blue eyes were fierce, protective. "We'll be careful. I'll get more herbs to mask your scent. We'll figure this out." She shook her head, her silver hair falling over her shoulders. "It's not just my scent. The bond, it's stronger now. Every wolf in the pack will feel it if we're not careful. And Zane." She shuddered, remembering his predatory gaze. Magnus' jaw clenched. "Zane won't touch you. I'll kill him first." "Don't say that," Lyra snapped, her eyes flashing. "You think I want you dead? If you challenge him, Torin will have you executed. You're an Omega's son, Magnus. They'll never let you win." He stood, pacing the cave, his fists clenched. "Then what? We keep sneaking around, pretending? I can't live like that, Lyra. Not now. Not after this." She rose, crossing to him, her hand resting on his chest. "I don't want to pretend either. But we need time. My father set on Zane, but I bought us a few days by asking for a delay. We have to use that. Magnus covered her hand with his touch grounding her. And then what? Run? Fight? Tell me what you want, Lyra, and I'll do it. I don't know, she admitted, her voice breaking. I just know I can't lose you. He pulled her close, his lips brushing her forehead. You won't. I promised you, remember? We're in this together. They dressed in silence, the weight of their choices settling over them. Lyra doused herself with sage oil again, hoping it would hold until she could return to the hall. As they stepped out of the cave, Magnus paused, his head tilting. Someone's coming, he whispered, pushing her behind a boulder. Stay here. Lyra's heart raced as she crouched, listening. Footsteps crunched through the underbrush, and Kale's familiar voice called out. Magnus, you out here, you lovesick fool. Magnus relaxed, stepping into view. Keep it down, Kale. What do you want? Kale emerged, his grin fading as he caught Lyra's scent. Gods, you two don't mess around, do you? Lyra, you smell like a beacon. You need to get back to the hall before someone else notices. I'm trying, Lyra said, stepping out. But I can't go back like this. Not yet. Kale sighed, tossing Magnus a small pouch. More moonroot. It'll help, but it's not a fix. You two need a better plan than hiding in caves. We're working on it, Magnus said, his tone sharp. What's the word from the border? Rogues are moving closer, Kale said, his expression grim. Torrens sending warriors tomorrow. You're on the list, Magnus. He wants you gone. Lyra's stomach dropped. No, he can't. He can, Magnus said, his voice low. He's the alpha, but I'll find a way back, Lyra. I always do. As Kale led the way back to the settlement, Lyra clung to Magnus' hand, the bond a lifeline in the storm of what was to come. The great hall was quieter now, the summit's chaos replaced by the steady rhythm of pack life. Lyra sat at a long table, picking at a plate of roasted quail as she listened to her father discuss patrol schedules with his enforcers. She'd bathed in sage-infused water and changed into fresh leathers, but her nerves were raw, the bonds pull a constant distraction. Magnus was out there, sent to the border with Kale, and every moment apart felt like a wound. Zane had stayed, lingering under the guise of finalizing the alliance. He sat across the hall, his dark eyes fixed on her, his scarred face unreadable. Lyra forced herself to meet his gaze, her expression neutral, but her wolf bristled at his scrutiny. He'd been too quiet since the summit ended, and she didn't trust it. Lyra, Torrens said, drawing her attention. You've been distracted. I need you focused. The rogues are a threat, and Zane's warriors could turn the tide. She nodded, her throat tight. I understand, father. I'll do my part. He studied her, his gray eyes narrowing. You've been avoiding Zane. He's noticed. If you're to marry him, I'm not avoiding him, she said quickly. Too quickly. I've been unwell. The stress of the summit. Torrens' frown deepened, but he didn't press. See that you're better tomorrow. Zane wants to spar with you. It's a chance to prove your strength. Lyra's stomach twisted, but she nodded. As Torren turned to Brant, the enforcer who'd nearly caught her with Magnus, she caught a flicker of suspicion in Brant's eyes. He'd been watching her too closely, his nose twitching as if testing her scent. After the meal, Zane approached, his presence like a storm cloud. Lady Lyra, he said, his voice smooth but edged with menace. You're looking different. Today, something's changed. Her heart skipped, but she kept her voice steady. Just tired, Alpha Zane. The summit was long. He leaned closer, his nostrils flaring. Tired? Or something else? Your scent's off. Too much sage, maybe. His eyes narrowed, a predator sensing weakness. Lyra forced a smile. I've always liked sage. Keeps the air fresh. Zane's smirk was cold. Careful, Lyra. Secrets don't stay hidden in a pack like this. As he walked away, Lyra's hands trembled. She needed to warn Magnus, but he was miles away, and every moment she stayed in the hall felt like a trap closing. She slipped outside, heading for the healer's hut. Elder Mara, who doubled as the pack's herbalist, might have stronger herbs to mask her scent. Mara was grinding herbs when Lyra entered, her sharp eyes flicking up. You again, Mara said, setting down her pestle. You're burning through my sage like it's kindling. What's going on, Lyra? Nothing, Lyra said, too quickly. I just need more. For my nerves. Mara's gaze was piercing. Nerves don't smell like that. You're in heat, girl, or close to it. And you're hiding something else. Don't lie to me. I've known you since you were a pup. Lyra's heart raced, but she held Mara's gaze. Please, Mara. I need your help. No questions. Mara sighed, handing her a vial of concentrated moonroot. This'll help, but it won't hide everything. Whatever you're tangled up in. Lyra, it's dangerous. Be careful. Lyra nodded, clutching the vial. Thank you, Mara. I will. As she left the hut, Brant was waiting outside, his arms crossed. Late-night herb runs, my lady, he said, his tone deceptively casual. You're keeping odd hours. Just preparing for the patrols, Lyra said, brushing past him. Good night, Brant. His eyes followed her, and she knew he wasn't fooled. The noose was tightening, and Magnus was too far to help. Magnus crouched by a campfire, the eastern border's chill seeping into his bones. Kale sat across from him, sharpening a dagger, the scrape of stone against steel a steady rhythm. The rogue threat had kept them busy, tracking signs of a camp just beyond Blackthorn territory. But Magnus' mind was on Lyra, the bond a constant ache in his chest. Her heat, their night in the cave, it had changed everything, and the distance. Between them now was torture. You're brooding again, Kale said, not looking up. You'll scare the rogues off with that face. Magnus snorted, poking the fire with a stick. Good. Maybe they'll leave us alone. Kale grinned, but his eyes were serious. You're thinking about her. Lyra, you've got that look. Magnus didn't deny it. She's in trouble, Kale. Her heat hit, and I'm stuck out here. If Zane or Torin figure out, they won't, Kale said, but his tone lacked conviction. You said she's masking her scent. She's smart, Magnus. She'll handle it. She shouldn't have to, Magnus snapped, his voice low. I should be there, protecting her. Kale set down his dagger, leaning forward. You're protecting her by being here. Torin sent you to keep you away from her. You think that's a coincidence? Someone's sniffing around your little secret. Magnus' jaw clenched, his thoughts drifting to his mother, Elara. She'd faced the pack's wrath for love, defying Torin to be with an outsider. The memory was sharp, a wound. That never healed. He was 5, hiding behind her skirts as Torin's enforcers dragged her before the pack. Traitor, they'd called her, stripping her rank, her home, her dignity. She'd survived, but the shame had marked them both. Magnus, Kale said, pulling him back. You're not your mother. Lyra's not her either. But you need to be smart, or you'll end up just like her, exiled or worse. Magnus stared into the fire, the flames blurring as memories surfaced. She told me once that love was worth it, he said quietly. Even after everything, losing her rank, her pack, she said she'd do it again for my father. I didn't understand then. I do now. Kale's expression softened. Lyra's worth it, isn't she? Yeah, Magnus said, his voice rough. She is. A rustle in the bushes made them both tense, hands on weapons. A scout, a young wolf named Taryn, emerged, his face-stylized system, face pale with fear. Magnus, it's Taryn. He's got a point. Magnus relaxed slightly, lowering his dagger. What's the word, Taryn? Rogues hit a patrol a mile north, Taryn said, breathless. They took out 2 of our guys. Torin's calling everyone back. Magnus and Kale exchanged a glance. Back to camp. Magnus asked. Taryn nodded. Now? And they're asking for you specifically, Magnus. Magnus' blood ran cold. Why me? Taryn hesitated. Brant's been talking. Said you've been distracted. Torin wants answers. Kale cursed. Under his breath. Brant's onto you. You need to get to Lyra before he does. Magnus stood, his heart pounding. I'm going. Kale, cover for me. Like hell. Kale said, grabbing his arm. You run off now. You're as good as dead. Torin will have you skinned. I can't leave her alone, Magnus growled, pulling free. She's in heat, Kale. If Zane gets to her, then we go together, Kale said, slinging his pack over his shoulder. But we do this smart, or we're both done. Magnus nodded, gratitude mixing with fear. He couldn't lose Lyra. Not to Zane, not to Torin, not to anyone. As they headed for the settlement, the memory of his mother's exile burned in his mind. He wouldn't let Lyra suffer the same fate. Lyra sat in the healer's hut, grinding moonroot with a pestle, her hands shaking. The vial Mara had given her was nearly empty, and her heat's lingering effects left her scent dangerously potent. She'd avoided Zane all day, pleading illness, but Brant's suspicious glances followed her everywhere. The pack was buzzing, with talk of the rogue attack, and Magnus' absence gnawed at her. He was out there, at Torin's command, and she felt the distance like a physical ache. Mara entered, her sharp eyes taking in Lyra's tense posture. "You're going to wear out my mortar," she said, setting a bundle of herbs on the table. "What's got you so wound up?" Lyra hesitated, then set the pestle down. "Mara, I need more moonroot. A lot more. And I need your silence." Mara's brow furrowed, but she nodded. "I've kept your secrets so far, haven't I? But you're in deep, Lyra. I can smell it on you. Heat, and something else. Someone else." Lyra's heart skipped. "Mara, please. I'm not blind," Mara said, her voice softening. "It's the Omega's son, isn't it? Magnus Thorn." Lyra froze, her eyes wide. "How did you?" "I'm old, not stupid," Mara said, handing her a fresh vial of moonroot. "His scent's all over you, even under the sage. You're lucky Brant hasn't figured it out yet." Lyra clutched the vial, her voice trembling. "What do I do, Mara? My father set on Zane. If he finds out about Magnus." Mara sighed, sitting across from her. "You run, or you fight. There's no middle ground, not with Torin. But running's no life for an alpha's heir, and fighting means blood." Lyra's eyes burned. "I can't lose him. The bond, it's everything." Mara reached for her hand, her grip firm. "Then you need a plan. Moonroot will buy you time, but it won't hide the bond forever. You and Magnus need to disappear, or you need allies. The pack's not as loyal to Torin as he thinks." Lyra's breath caught. "Allies? Who?" "Start with the Omegas," Mara said. "They're fed up with Torin's rule. And that rogue friend of Magnus, Kale. He's got connections. Use them." Lyra nodded, her mind racing. "Thank you, Mara. I mean it." "Don't thank me yet," Mara said, standing. "Just stay alive." Lyra left the hut, her thoughts on Magnus. She needed to see him to plan their next move. As she slipped into the forest, she didn't notice Brant watching from the shadows, his eyes gleaming with suspicion. Hours later, Magnus and Kale returned, their faces grim. Lyra met them at the forest's edge, her heart leaping at the sight of Magnus. "You're back," she breathed, throwing her arms around him. "Barely," Magnus said, holding her tight. "Torin's asking questions. Brant's been talking." Kale nodded, his expression serious. "We've got a plan. There's a rogue camp, a day's run from here. They'll take you in, but it's a risk." Lyra pulled back, her eyes wide. "Run to the rogues?" "Magnus, that's our only shot," Magnus said, his voice firm. "Torin's closing in. Zane's sniffing around. We stay, we're dead." Lyra's hands trembled, but she nodded. "Okay, we go together." Kale grinned, clapping Magnus on the shoulder. "That's the spirit. We leave at dawn. Pack light." As they planned their escape, Lyra clung to Magnus, the bond their only certainty in the storm ahead. Brant's shadow loomed in the distance, a silent threat they couldn't yet see. The forest was a blur of shadows and moonlight as Lyra trudged through the underbrush, her cloak heavy with dew. Magnus walked beside her, his bow slung across his back, his eyes scanning the trees for any sign of pursuit. Kale led the way, his lanky frame moving with the ease of a wolf born to the wild. They'd been running since dawn, fleeing the Blackthorn settlement with nothing but the clothes on their backs and a desperate hope for sanctuary. Lyra's heat had subsided, but a new fear gripped her, one she hadn't yet voiced. Her hand drifted to her abdomen, a subtle gesture she hoped Magnus hadn't noticed. For days, she'd felt a change, a faint shift in her body that her wolf instincts recognized before her mind did. She was pregnant. The realization had hit her that morning, a certainty as undeniable as the mate bond itself. Wolves could smell a pregnant she-wolf, and soon, no amount of moonroot or sage would hide it. The pack would know, and with it, her bond with Magnus would be exposed. "Lyra, you okay?" Magnus' voice broke through her thoughts, low and concerned. He slowed, his blue eyes searching her face. "You're quiet." She forced a smile, adjusting her cloak. "Just tired. It's been a long day." Kale glanced back, his amber eyes narrowing. "We're almost to the rogue camp. Another hour, maybe. You sure you're up for this, Lyra? It's not too late to turn back." "Turn back." Lyra's voice was sharp, her fear fueling her defiance. "To what? Zane? My father's orders? I'd rather take my chances with the rogues." Magnus' hand found hers, his touch grounding. "We'll be all right. Kale's got friends there. They'll help us." Kale snorted, kicking a rock out. Of the path. Friends is a strong word. Let's just say they owe me. But they're not exactly the welcoming type, so keep your wits about you. Lyra nodded, her mind racing. The pregnancy changed everything. Running was risky enough, but with a pup on the way, the stakes were higher. She needed to tell Magnus, but the words stuck in her throat. What if he panicked? What if he blamed himself? She squeezed his hand, drawing strength from the bond.as. They crested a hill. The rogue camp came into view. A scattering of tents and makeshift shelters nestled in a rocky valley. Fires burned low, casting flickering light on wolves moving in the shadows. Kale raised a hand, signaling them to stop. Wait here, he said. I'll talk to their leader first. Don't want them jumping us. Magnus nodded, pulling Lyra behind a boulder. Stay close, he murmured, his bow ready. If anything goes wrong, it won't, Lyra said, though her voice wavered. She leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. Magnus, there's something I need to tell you. He turned, his expression softening. What is it? She took a deep breath, her heart pounding. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air, heavy and raw. Magnus froze, his eyes widening. Pregnant? He whispered, his voice barely audible. Are you sure? She nodded, tears pricking her eyes. I felt it this morning. My wolf knows. And soon, everyone else will too. Magnus' face paled, but he pulled her into his arms, his embrace fierce. God's Lyra. A pup, our pup. His voice cracked, a mix of awe and fear. We'll protect it, no matter what. How? She asked, pulling back to meet his gaze. The pack will smell it. My father, Zane, they'll know it's yours. They'll come for us. Then we'll fight, Magnus said, his jaw tight. We'll find a way. I won't let them take you or our child. Kale's whistle cut through the moment, signaling them to approach. Time to move, he called, his grin tight. They're willing to talk, but don't expect a warm welcome. Lyra wiped her eyes, steeling herself. Let's go, she said, her voice firm despite the fear gnawing at her. Magnus kept her hand in his, the bond a lifeline as they descended into the rogue camp. Their future uncertain, but their resolve unbreakable. The great hall of the Blackthorn. Pack was a storm of tension, the air thick with the scent of anger and betrayal. Alpha Tauren stood at the head of the council table, his broad frame taut with fury, his gray eyes blazing. The elders sat in uneasy silence, while Brant, the enforcer, stood at attention, his report still echoing in the room. Lyra was gone, fled with Magnus Thorn and the rogue Kale, and the pack was in an uproar. She's my daughter. Tauren roared, slamming his fist on the table. The wood groaned under the impact, and several elders flinched. How did this happen? How did my heir slip away under your noses? Brant straightened, his face impassive but his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. I warned you, Alpha. I saw her with the Omega's son days ago, near the forest. Her scent was off. I suspect she's in heat, and he's the cause. Tauren's growl was low, dangerous. Magnus Thorn. That disgraced whelp dares touch my daughter? I'll have his head. Elder Mara cleared her throat, her voice calm but firm. Alpha, Lyra's no fool. If she's run, it's because she felt she had no choice. Forcing her to marry Zane may have pushed her too far. Tauren's gaze snapped to Mara, his anger barely contained. You dare question me? Zane's pack is our best chance against the rogues. Lyra's duty was to secure that alliance, not run off with some lowborn cur. Mara held his gaze, unflinching. Duty doesn't erase love, Tauren. You know that better than most. The room fell silent, the weight of Mara's words hanging heavy. Tauren's late mate, Lyra's mother, had been a love match, a rare defiance of pack politics. He turned away, his jaw tight, memories warring with his rage. Zane, who had lingered in the hall, stepped forward, his scarred face twisted in a smirk. Love or not, she's disgraced herself. A she-wolf in heat, running with an Omega's son? The pack will talk, Tauren. You need to act fast. Tauren rounded on him, his voice a snarl. You think I need your advice, Ironclaw? My daughter will be found, and this will be settled. Zane raised his hands, feigning deference. Of course, Alpha. But if she's carrying his pup, as Brant suspects, your alliance plans are in ruins. Let me help. My warriors can track her. Faster than yours. Tauren's eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering. And what do you gain, Zane? Zane's smile was cold. Her. I'll take her, pup or no pup. Ironclaw needs a strong mate, and I don't care about her indiscretions. Mara's lips thinned, but she said nothing. Torin paced, his mind racing. Brant, he barked, take a dozen warriors. Find them. Bring Lyra back, alive. Magnus and the rogue are expendable. Brant nodded, a gleam of anticipation in his eyes. Yes, Alpha. They won't get far. As Brant left to gather his men, Mara approached Torin, her voice low. Think carefully, Torin. Lyra's your heir. If you harm her, mate, you'll lose her forever. Torin's fists clenched, but he didn't respond. His daughter's betrayal cut deeper than he'd admit, and the thought of her carrying an Omega's pup was a wound to his pride. Get out, he said finally, his voice hollow. All of you. As the elders filed out, Zane lingered, his smirk widening. I'll be waiting, Torin. For Lyra, and for our alliance. Torin didn't reply, his gaze fixed on the fire. He'd find his daughter, but what he'd do when he did, he wasn't sure. Lyra sat by a small fire in the rogue camp, her cloak pulled tight against the evening chill. The camp was a rough patchwork of tents and lean-tos, filled with wolves who eyed her with suspicion. Magnus sat beside her, sharpening a dagger, while Kale negotiated with the rogue leader, a sharp-eyed she-wolf named Sable. The pregnancy weighed on Lyra, a secret she hadn't shared with Kale or the rogues. Only Magnus knew, and his protective glances told her he was as worried as she was. They're taking their time, Lyra said, her voice low. What if Sable turns us away? Magnus set down his dagger, his hand finding hers. She won't. Kale's got leverage. And we're not exactly helpless. We can prove our worth. Lyra nodded, but her stomach churned. The scent of her pregnancy was growing stronger, and she caught a few rogues sniffing the air, their eyes narrowing. They'll know soon, she whispered. The pup, it's going to change everything. Magnus' grip tightened. Let it. I'm not ashamed, Lyra. This is our pup, our family. We'll protect it, no matter what. Before she could respond, Kale returned with Sable, a tall woman with cropped black hair and a scar across her cheek. Her amber eyes flicked over Lyra, lingering on her abdomen. So, Sable said, her voice cool. The Alpha's daughter and the Omega's son. Quite the pair. Kale says you need sanctuary. We do, Lyra said, standing to meet Sable's gaze. My father wants me to marry for politics. I chose Magnus instead. We're not here to cause trouble. We just need a place to stay. Sable's lips curved, not quite a smile. A place to stay? This isn't a guest house, princess. You're carrying a pup, aren't you? That's a liability in a camp like this. Lyra's heart skipped, but she didn't flinch. No, princess. I can fight, hunt, whatever you need. So can Magnus. We're not asking for charity. Sable raised an eyebrow, glancing at Magnus. And you? You're ready to throw your lot in with rogues, Omega? Magnus stood, his voice steady. I'm ready to protect my mate and my pup. If that means joining you, I'm in. Sable studied them, then nodded. All right, you stay for now. But you pull your weight, and you don't bring Torin's wrath down on us. Deal, deal, Lyra said, relief flooding her. As Sable walked away, Kale grinned. Told you she'd come around. Now, let's get you settled before. A shout cut him off, followed by the howl of a wolf. The camp erupted, rogues grabbing weapons as a scout ran in. Ironclaw warriors, the scout yelled. They're coming from the west. Lyra's blood ran cold. Zane, she whispered. Magnus grabbed his bow, his face grim. He's tracked us. Kale, get Lyra to safety. No, Lyra said, drawing her dagger. I'm not hiding. We fight together. Sable appeared, barking orders. Form a line. Archers to the ridge. If Ironclaw wants a fight, they'll get one. As the rogues prepared, Zane's voice echoed through the valley. Lyra Blackthorn, come out, or we burn this camp to the ground. Lyra's heart pounded, but she stepped forward, Magnus at her side. We end this now, she said, her voice fierce. For our pup. The rogue camp was a frenzy of preparation, wolves scrambling to defensive positions as Zane's warriors loomed at the valley's edge. Lyra stood with Magnus and Kale. On a rocky outcrop, her dagger gripped tightly. Sable directed her rogues with sharp commands, her scar gleaming in the firelight. The air was thick with tension, the scent of Lyra's pregnancy now unmistakable to every wolf present. There was no hiding it anymore. Zane emerged from the trees, his massive frame flanked by a dozen Ironclaw warriors. His scarred face twisted into a sneer as he spotted Lyra. "There you are," he called, his voice carrying over the wind. "Running with rogues, Lyra? And pregnant, no less. Your father will be disappointed." Lyra's jaw tightened, but she stepped forward, Magnus, hand on her arm. "I'm not going back, Zane. Not to you, not to my father. This is my choice." Zane laughed, a cold, grating sound. "Choice? You're the Alpha's heir, not some rogue's whore. Come with me, and I'll overlook your little mistake." His eyes flicked to her abdomen, then to Magnus. "Or I'll kill him and take you anyway." Magnus growled, stepping in front of Lyra, his bow raised. "Touch her, and you're dead." Zane's warriors tensed, hands on weapons, but Sable's voice cut through. "Enough posturing," she barked, striding forward. "This is my camp, Ironclaw. You're on my ground. Leave, or we paint this valley red." Zane's smirk didn't waver. "You think your rabble can stop me?" Torin's orders were clear. Lyra comes back, and the Omega dies. I'm just following through. Lyra's heart raced, but she held her ground. "My father doesn't own me, Zane, and neither do you. I'm Magnus' mate, bonded by the gods. You can't break that." The word mate rippled through the rogues, murmurs spreading. Sable's eyes narrowed, but she didn't intervene. Zane's face darkened, his voice low. "A mate bond? With him? You've disgraced your pack, Lyra. But I'm generous. Marry me, and I'll let your pup live." Magnus' bowstring creaked, his voice deadly calm. "Last chance, Zane. Walk away." Zane laughed, raising a hand to signal his warriors. But before they could move, Magnus stepped into the open, his voice ringing out. "I claim Lyra Blackthorn as my mate," he shouted, addressing the rogues and Ironclaw alike. "She carries my pup, and I'll die before I let you take her." The rogues roared, some in shock, others in approval. Sable's lips twitched, a spark of respect in her eyes. Zane's face contorted with rage. "You? An Omega's bastard? You dare challenge me?" "I'm not challenging you," Magnus said, his arrow trained on Zane's chest. "I'm telling you, she's mine." The standoff broke as Zane's warriors charged, and the valley erupted into chaos. Magnus fired, his arrow grazing Zane's shoulder, while Lyra and Sable fought side by side, daggers flashing. Kale dove into the fray, his staff ablur. The battle was fierce but brief. Sable's rogues outnumbered Zane's men, forcing them to retreat. As the dust settled, Zane's voice echoed from the trees. "This isn't over, Lyra. Torin will hear of this." Lyra leaned against Magnus, her breath ragged. "He knows now," she whispered. "Everyone does." Magnus held her close, his face grim. "Let them know. We're done hiding." Sable approached, wiping blood from her dagger. "Bold move, Omega. You've got guts, but you've just painted a target on this camp." "Then we'll fight," Magnus said, his voice unwavering. "For Lyra. For our pup." Lyra nodded, her hand resting on her abdomen. The bond burned bright, a beacon in the chaos. They were exposed, but they were together, and that was enough for now. The rogue camp was quiet the next morning, the aftermath of the battle leaving a somber mood. Lyra sat in a small tent, stitching a tear in her cloak, her mind replaying Zane's threats. Magnus was outside, helping repair defenses with Kale and Sable's rogues. The bond kept her tethered to him, but the weight of their situation, her pregnancy, Zane's pursuit, her father's wrath, pressed heavily on her. Sable had granted them temporary sanctuary, but the rogues' trust was tenuous. Lyra's pregnancy was now an open secret, and whispers followed her everywhere. She needed guidance, someone who understood the cost of defying the pack. There was only one person she could turn to, Alara, Magnus' mother. Lyra found Alara at the camp's edge, tending a small garden of herbs. The older woman's dark hair was streaked with gray, her hands steady as she plucked leaves. She looked up as Lyra approached, her blue eyes, so like Magnus, softening with recognition. "You're Lyra," Alara said, setting down her basket. "I heard what happened last night. You and my son, you've stirred up quite a storm." Lyra nodded, her throat tight. "I didn't mean to drag him into this. But the bond, I couldn't fight it." Alara smiled, a wistful curve of her lips. "No one can fight a mate bond. I tried once. Didn't end well." Lyra sat beside her, the scent of herbs calming her nerves. Magnus told me about you. What happened with Torin with your mate? Alara's smile faded, her gaze distant. His name was Torin. A rogue, like these folks. I was a warrior, high-ranking, until I fell for him. Torin, your father, called it betrayal. Stripped me of my rank, banished me. Torin died fighting. To protect me. I raised Magnus alone, carrying that shame. Lyra's heart ached. I'm so sorry. I'm afraid I'll do the same to Magnus. My father's coming for us. And Zane. He won't stop. Alara reached for her hand, her grip firm. Listen to me, Lyra. Love like this, it's rare. It's worth the fight. I lost Torin, but I'd do it all again for the time we had. You and Magnus, you've got a chance. Don't let fear take it from you. But the pup, Lyra said, her voice breaking. If they find us, then you fight harder, Alara said fiercely. You're an alpha's daughter, Lyra. You've got strength in you, and so does my son. In this camp, they're not just rogues. They're family, if you earn their trust. Lyra wiped her eyes, nodding. How do I do that? Be honest, Alara said. Tell them what you're fighting for. They'll respect that. And lean on Magnus. He's stronger than he knows. As Lyra returned to the camp, she found Magnus waiting, his face etched with worry. You all right? He asked, pulling her close. I am now, she said, leaning into him. I talked to your mother. She's amazing. Magnus smiled, a rare softness in his eyes. She is. What did she say? Barricades. Lyra stood on a rocky ledge overlooking the valley, her hand resting on her slightly rounded abdomen, the weight of her pregnancy a constant reminder of what was at stake. Magnus stood beside her, his bow slung across his back, his blue eyes scanning the horizon for signs of pursuit. The rogue leader, Sable, had granted them sanctuary after Magnus' public claim, but the camp was on edge, bracing for Torin's inevitable retaliation. Below, Kale was organizing a group of rogues, his lanky frame moving with purpose as he barked orders. Alara, Magnus' mother, worked nearby, distributing herbs to bolster the camp's defenses. The rogues had accepted Lyra and Magnus, but their trust was fragile, earned only through Sable's grudging approval and the couple's willingness to fight. That Lyra's thoughts were interrupted by a young rogue, Taryn, who approached with a nervous glance. Sable wants you both, he said, his voice low. There's news from Blackthorn territory. Magnus' hand found Lyra's, his grip steadying her. What kind of news? He asked. Taryn hesitated. A scout just got back. The packs. Splitting. Some are loyal to Torin, but others, they're talking rebellion. Because of you too. Lyra's heart skipped. Rebellion? Against my father? Taryn nodded. They're saying the Alpha's too harsh, pushing for alliances like with Zane. The Omegas, some hunters, even a few warriors, are questioning him. Your bond with Magnus, it stirred them up. Magnus' jaw tightened. That's a double-edged sword. If Torin gets wind of it, he'll come down harder. Lyra nodded, her mind racing. We need to use this. If we can reach those wolves, we might have allies. They followed Taryn to Sable's tent, where the rogue leader stood over a crude map of the territory. Kale was there, leaning against a post, while Alara sat quietly, her hands folded. Sable looked up, her scarred face unreadable. You've got a knack for trouble, Blackthorn, she said to Lyra. Your pack's fracturing, and it's because of you and your mate. Lyra met her gaze. I didn't mean to start a rebellion. I just wanted to be with Magnus. Sable snorted. Intentions don't matter when blood's on the line. My scout says Torin's got Brant leading a war party. They're coming for you, and they won't care who gets in the way. Magnus stepped forward, his voice firm. Then we fight. Your rogues, our allies in the pack, we can hold them off. Sable's eyes narrowed. You think my people will die for your love story? We're survivors, not martyrs. We're not asking for martyrs, Lyra said, her voice steady despite the fear in her gut. We're asking for a chance. If the pack's divided, we can turn that to our advantage. Let me talk to them. Reach out to the rebels. Sable studied her, then glanced at Alara. What do you think, Herbwitch? Can your son's mate pull this off? Alara's lips curved, a spark of pride in her eyes. Lyra's got alpha blood. She's got the will, and Magnus has the heart. They'll fight for what's theirs. Kale grinned, cutting through the tension. And I'm not sitting this out. Those rebels need a nudge, and I know just the wolves to talk to. Sable sighed, rolling up the map. Fine. But if this goes south, you're on your own. Get your plan together and do it fast." As they left the tent, Lyra pulled Magnus aside, her voice low. "This could work, but it's risky. If we reach out to the pack, Brant or Zane could intercept us." Magnus' hand cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. "Then we're careful. But we're not hiding anymore, Lyra. Not for our pup, not for us." She nodded, the bond flaring between them. The pack was fracturing, and their love was the spark. Now, they had to fan it into a flame, or risk it burning them all. The moon hung low, casting silver light over the rogue camp as Lyra and Magnus prepared their plan. Kale had slipped into Blackthorn territory to contact the rebels, carrying a message from Lyra, a call for those who opposed Torrhen's rule to join them. The camp was restless, rogues whispering about the coming fight. Alara had stayed close, offering Lyra herbs to ease her nausea, a quiet reminder of the pup growing inside her. Magnus led Lyra to a secluded corner of the camp, where a small fire burned. Kale's got a contact, a hunter named Gavrik. He said, his voice low. "He's one of the rebels. If we can get to him, we might have a shot at rallying the others." Lyra nodded, her hand resting on her dagger. "But we can't wait for Kale to come back. Brant's coming, and Zane's with him. We need to move now." Magnus' eyes darkened. "Move where?" "The camp's our best defense. If we run, we're exposed." "Not run," Lyra said, her voice fierce. "Fight. But we need to get to Blackthorn cells first. There are Omegas, locked up for defying my father. If we free them, they'll join us." Magnus stared, a mix of awe and fear in his eyes. "You're talking about breaking into the heart of the pack. Lyra, you're pregnant. If they catch you, they won't," she said, her chin lifting. "I know the settlement better than anyone. There's a hidden passage under the cells. We can get in, get out, and bring the Omegas to the camp." Before Magnus could argue, Sable approached, her scar glinting in the firelight. "I heard that," she said, her tone dry. "You're crazier than I thought, Blackthorn. But it's not a bad plan. My rogues can create a diversion, draw Brant's men away." Lyra's heart lifted. "You'd help us?" Sable shrugged. "You're stirring up a fight I've wanted for years. Torrhen's had it coming. But don't screw this up." Alara joined them, her expression grim. "I'm coming with you. Those Omegas, they're my people too. I know the cells." Magnus shook his head. "No, Ma. It's too dangerous." Alara's eyes flashed. "I survived Torrhen's wrath once. I can handle this. Besides, Lyra needs someone who knows healing, in case things go wrong." Lyra squeezed Alara's hand, grateful. "Thank you. We move at midnight." The plan was set. Sable's rogues would stage an attack on the eastern border, luring Brant's war party away. Lyra, Magnus, and Alara would slip into the settlement, free the Omegas, and escape before dawn. As midnight approached, they crept through the forest, the bond keeping Lyra tethered to Magnus. But as they neared the settlement, shouts echoed, "Too close. It's a trap." Magnus hissed, pulling Lyra behind a tree. Alara crouched beside them, her dagger drawn as Zane's warriors emerged, led by Brant, their eyes gleaming in the moonlight. "Found you," Brant called, his voice smug. "Torrhen knew you'd come back, Lyra." Lyra's heart pounded, but she stepped forward, dagger raised. "You won't take me, Brant." Magnus fired an arrow, catching one warrior in the shoulder. The fight erupted, Lyra and Alara holding their ground as Magnus fought with lethal precision. But there were too many. Brant lunged, his blade grazing Magnus' arm, drawing blood. "Magnus!" Lyra screamed, diving between them. Her dagger slashed Brant's thigh, forcing him back. "Enough!" Zane's voice boomed, stopping the fight. He stepped forward, his scarred face twisted with fury. "You're surrounded, Lyra. Come with me, or they die." Lyra's breath caught, but Magnus grabbed her hand. "We don't surrender," he growled. Before Zane could respond, a howl split the air, Sable's rogues, charging from the trees. The diversion had come late, but it was enough. Lyra, Magnus, and Alara fought their way free, retreating into the forest, bloodied but alive. "We failed," Lyra gasped, leaning against Magnus. "No," he said, his voice fierce. "We're still here. We'll try again." The rogue camp was a hive of activity, the failed rescue attempt leaving everyone on edge. Lyra sat in Sable's tent, her hands wrapped around a mug of herbal tea Alara had brewed to calm her nerves. Her pregnancy was starting to show, a gentle curve that made her feel both vulnerable and fierce. Magnus sat beside her, his arm bandaged from Brant's blade, his face etched with frustration. Cale had returned, bloodied but grinning, with news. From Blackthorn. "Gavrick's with us?" Cale said, tossing a map onto the table. "He's got a dozen Omegas and hunters ready to defect. They're waiting for a signal." Sable leaned over the map, her scar twitching. "A signal? You mean a suicide mission?" Torrens got the settlement locked down. Brant's sniffing every corner. Lyra's voice was steady despite her exhaustion. "Then we give them a reason to move. If we can free those Omegas, we'll have numbers. Enough to hold this camp against my father." Magnus nodded, his hand on hers. "Cale, can Gavrick get us into the cells?" Cale grinned. "He's already working on it. There's a guard, Rin, one of Brant's men, who's wavering. Hates Torrens' guts. Gavrick's talking him into looking the other way." Sable's eyes narrowed. "And you trust this Rin? One wrong move, and we're all dead." "I trust Gavrick," Cale said. "He's risked his neck for us already. But we need to move fast." Zane's pushing Torren to attack. Lyra's stomach twisted at Zane's name. "He's using this to gain power," she said. "He doesn't care about me. He wants Blackthorn." Alara spoke up, her voice calm but firm. "Then we outsmart him. Lyra, you're Torren's heir. If you can rally the rebels, you could challenge his claim." Lyra shook her head. "I don't want to be alpha. I just want to be with Magnus. To raise our pup in peace." Magnus' eyes softened, but his voice was resolute. "You're already a leader, Lyra. These rogues, the rebels, they're looking to you. We can do this together." Sable snorted, but there was a glint of respect in her eyes. "You two are either brilliant or insane. All right, here's the deal. My rogues will back you, but only if you commit. No half measures. You're with us, or you're out." Lyra met her gaze, the bond with Magnus giving her strength. "We're in. For the Omegas, for the rebels, for our pup." Sable nodded, a rare smile breaking through. "Good. Cale, get word to Gavrick. We move tomorrow night." As the meeting broke, Lyra pulled Alara aside. "Thank you," she said softly, "for believing in us." Alara squeezed her hand. "You're family now, Lyra. We fight for family." Magnus joined them, his arm around Lyra. "Tomorrow, we change everything," he said, his voice a vow. Lyra nodded, her hand on her abdomen. The Rogue Alliance was their hope, but the fight was far from over. The Blackthorn settlement loomed under a starless sky, its torches casting eerie shadows. Lyra, Magnus, and Cale crouched in the forest, waiting for Gavrick's signal. Alara had stayed at the camp, preparing healing supplies, while Sable led a rogue diversion to draw Brant's patrols away. The plan was simple but perilous. Rin, the wavering guard, would leave the cell block unlocked, allowing them to free the Omegas and escape before Torrens' forces could respond. Lyra's heart pounded, her pregnancy making her hyper-aware of every risk. The bond with Magnus kept her grounded, his presence a steady anchor. "You sure about Rin?" she whispered to Cale. Cale's grin was tight. "Gavrick swears by him. Says he's got a sister among the Omegas. He'll come through." Magnus' hand brushed hers, his voice low. "If he doesn't, we fight our way out. I'm not losing you." She nodded, gripping her dagger. A low whistle sounded, Gavrick's signal. They moved, slipping through the settlement's outskirts to the cell block, a squat stone building guarded by a single torch. Rin stood at the door, his face pale but resolute. "You're late," Rin hissed, glancing around. "Brant's on high alert. Move fast." Lyra met his gaze. "Thank you, Rin. We won't forget this." He nodded, unlocking the door. "My sister's in there. Get her out." Inside, the cells were dank, the air heavy with despair. A dozen Omegas huddled in the shadows, their eyes wide as Lyra and Magnus appeared. Gavrick, a wiry hunter with a scarred jaw, was already there, working a lock. "About time," he said, grinning. "Let's move." As they freed the Omegas, Lyra's voice rang out. "You're not prisoners anymore. Join us, and we'll build a pack where rank doesn't chain you." A woman, Rin's sister, Lila, stepped forward, her eyes fierce. "We're with you, Lady Lyra. For freedom." The escape was nearly complete when shouts echoed outside. Brant's voice cut through the night. "They're here. Seal the exits." Magnus grabbed Lyra's arm. "Go? I'll hold them off." "No." Lyra snapped, her dagger flashing. "We fight together." The Omegas rallied, grabbing makeshift weapons as Brant's warriors stormed the cells. Kale and Gavrik fought back to back, while Lyra and Magnus held the door, their blades ablur. But as they retreated, Torin appeared, his massive frame blocking the passage. Lyra, he roared, his gray eyes blazing. You'd betray your pack for this scum? Lyra faced him, her voice steady despite her fear. I'm not betraying the pack, father. I'm fighting for it. For Magnus, for our pup, for everyone you've crushed under your rule. Torin's face twisted, pain and rage warring. You're my daughter. Come back, and we'll fix this. There's nothing to fix, Lyra said, tears in her eyes. I love him. I choose him. Magnus stepped beside her, his bow raised. Let us go, Torin, or this ends in blood. Torin hesitated, but Brant's shout broke the moment. They're escaping. The fight resumed, and Lyra's group fled. The Omegas following. They reached the forest, Sable's rogues covering their retreat. Torin's howl echoed behind them, a mix of fury and grief that as they reached the camp. Lyra collapsed into Magnus' arms, sobbing. He'll never forgive me. Magnus held her tight, his voice fierce. He doesn't have to. We're building our own pack now. The rogue camp was a flurry of activity as the freed Omegas integrated, their presence bolstering the ranks but straining resources. Lyra worked alongside Alara, distributing food and supplies, her pregnancy slowing her but not stopping her. Magnus and Kale scouted the perimeter, while Sable planned their next move. Torin's howl had been a declaration of war, and the camp braced for an attack that in Sable's tent. Lyra sat with Magnus, Kale, and Alara, the map spread before them. Torin's coming, Sable said, her voice grim. He's rallied his loyalists, and Zane's pushing him to strike fast. Lyra's hand rested on her abdomen, the pup's presence a quiet strength. We can't keep running, she said. We need to make a stand, here, with the Omegas and rogues. Magnus nodded, his hand on hers. Gavrik's rebels are spreading the word. More will join us. We just need to hold out. Kale leaned forward, his grin sly. Rin's still in the settlement, feeding us intel. Brant's leading the charge, but Torin's hesitating. Your defiance shook him, Lyra. Alara spoke. Up, her voice calm. He's still her father. Deep down, he loves her. That's your leverage. Lyra's eyes burned. I don't want to use him. I just want him to see we're not the enemy. Sable snorted. Good luck with that. Torin's pride is bigger than this valley. But if we hold this camp, we might. Force his hand. Magnus' voice was resolute. Then we fortify. Train the Omegas. Set traps. Use the terrain. We're not just rogues. We're a pack now. Lyra met his gaze, the bond flaring. Our pack, she said softly. For our pup. As they dispersed to prepare, Sable pulled Lyra aside. You're carrying more than a child, Blackthorn. You're carrying hope for these wolves. Don't let it die. Lyra nodded, her resolve hardening. I won't. As night fell, she stood with Magnus, watching the camp prepare for war. The wild was their home now, and they'd fight to keep it. Together, the rogue camp nestled in the rocky valley was a fortress of defiance, its tents and barricades bristling with makeshift weapons and determined wolves. Lyra stood at the camp's heart, her cloak pulled tight against the morning chill, her hand resting on the subtle curve of her abdomen. The pregnancy was undeniable now, her scent a beacon to every wolf in the camp. Magnus was by her side, his bow slung across his back, his blue eyes scanning the horizon for signs of Torin's war party. The bond between them hummed, a steady anchor in the chaos. Sable, the rogue leader, strode toward them, her cropped black hair glinting in the dawn light, her scar a stark line across her cheek. She carried herself with the authority of an alpha, though she'd never claimed the title. Kale trailed behind her, his lanky frame relaxed but his amber eyes sharp. Alara, Magnus' mother, was nearby, distributing healing herbs to the rogues, her presence a quiet strength. Gavrik, the rebel hunter, and Lila, Rin's Omega sister, worked with the freed prisoners, training them for the fight ahead. We've got a problem, Sable said, her voice cutting through the morning bustle. My scouts spotted Brant's war party closing in. They're a day out, maybe less. Torin's with them, and Zane's pushing for blood. Lyra's heart sank, but she kept her voice steady. How many? 50, at least, Sable replied, crossing her arms. Warriors, mostly. Zane's Ironclaw brutes are leading the charge. We've got 30 rogues, your omegas, and whatever rebels Gavrik can pull. It's not enough unless we play smart. Magnus' jaw tightened. Then we use the valley. Set traps, choke points. Force them to fight on our terms. Sable's lips twitched, a rare spark of approval in her eyes. You think like a rogue, Omega. But it's not just numbers. They know about the pup. Her gaze flicked to Lyra's abdomen. That's a target on your back, Blackthorn. Lyra's hand tightened on her dagger. Let them come. I'm not hiding anymore. Kale grinned, leaning against a nearby post. That's the spirit. Rin's still feeding us intel from the settlement. Says Torrens torn. Half the pack's questioning him. Thanks to you too. Alara approached, her hands stained with herb juice. Use that, she said, her voice calm but firm. Torrens. Pride is his weakness. If you can sway his wolves, you might avoid a slaughter. Sable studied Lyra, her amber eyes piercing. You're the key, Blackthorn. You're Torrens' heir, pregnant with an Omega's pup. That's a symbol, hope. For some, a threat to others. You want my rogues to die for you. Prove you're worth it. Lyra met her gaze, the bond with Magnus giving her strength. I'm not asking for your lives. I'm asking for a chance to build something better, a pack where rank doesn't chain us. Magnus and I, our pup, we're fighting for that. Will you? Sable's scar twitched, but she nodded. You've got guts, I'll give you that. All right, you're one of us, for now. But you follow my lead. This camp, these wolves, they're my responsibility. Deal, Lyra said, extending her hand. Sable shook it, her grip like iron. Magnus squeezed Lyra's shoulder, his voice low. We'll hold this camp. For our pup. As Sable barked orders to her rogues, Lyra turned to Alara. Thank you, she said softly, for standing by us. Alara's eyes softened, so like Magnus. Your family, Lyra. We fight for family. The camp prepared for war, but Lyra's heart held a flicker of hope. Sable's alliance, fragile as it was their lifeline. They just had to survive what was coming. The valley echoed with the clash of wood and steel as rogues and omegas. Trained under Sable's watchful eye, Lyra stood on a rise, her dagger in hand, practicing moves despite the weight of her pregnancy. Magnus was nearby, teaching a group of omegas to shoot with makeshift bows, his patience steadying their nerves. Kale sparred with Gavrik, their staffs a blur, while Lila led the freed omegas in drills, her fierce determination inspiring them. Alara moved among the wounded from the last skirmish, her herbs easing their pain. Lyra's muscles ached, but she pushed through, her mind on the coming fight. Sable approached, her scar glinting in the midday sun. You're not half bad with that blade, she said, nodding at Lyra's dagger. But you're slowing down. The pup's weighing on you. Lyra wiped sweat from her brow, her voice firm. I can still fight. I have to. Sable's eyes narrowed. You're no good to us dead, Blackthorn. You're carrying the future of this rebellion. Don't be reckless. I'm not, Lyra said, her hand resting on her abdomen. But I won't sit by while Magnus and the others risk their lives. Sable snorted, but there was respect in her gaze. Stubborn as an alpha. Fine, but you train with me. I'll teach you how to fight smart, not just hard. Magnus joined them, his bow slung across his back. She's always been stubborn, he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. But she's right. We fight together. Sable raised an eyebrow. You two are a matched set, aren't you? All right, Omega, show me what you've got. Let's see if you can keep up. Magnus grinned, drawing his bow. Try me. They sparred, Sable's speed a match for Magnus' precision. Lyra watched, her heart swelling with pride. He'd come. So far from the outcast tracker, his strength undeniable. But as the training continued, Kale approached, his face grim. Rin sent word, he said, his voice low. Brant's war party's closer than we thought. They'll hit us by dawn. Lyra's stomach twisted. Dawn? That's not enough time. It'll have to be, Sable said, sheathing her dagger. We've got traps set, pitfalls, snares. The valley's narrow, they'll bottleneck. But we need every wolf ready. Gavrik joined them, his scarred jaw tight. The Omegas are green, but they're willing. Lila's got them fired up. They're fighting for you, Lyra, for what you and Magnus represent. Lyra nodded, her throat tight. Then we make sure they don't die for nothing. Alara approached, her hands full of herb pouches. I've got enough to treat wounds, but we'll need more if it's a long fight. Lyra, you need to rest. The pup? I'm fine, Lyra said, though her body ached. I'll rest when this is over. Magnus' hand found hers, his voice soft. You're not alone in this, Lyra. Let us carry some of the weight. She leaned into him, the bond a steady pulse. I know, but I need to do this. For our pup, for the pack we're building. As night fell, the camp trained relentlessly, the air filled with determination and fear. Sable's rogues, Gavricks, rebels, and the freed Omegas were becoming a pack, united by Lyra and Magnus' bond. Dawn was coming, and with it, a fight that would define their future. The valley was cloaked in pre-dawn mist, the air heavy with the scent of earth and tension. Lyra stood with Magnus and Sable on a ridge, watching as rogues set the final traps, sharpened. Stakes hidden in the underbrush, ropes strung across narrow paths. Kale was below, coordinating with Gavric and Lila, while Alara prepared a makeshift infirmary in a nearby tent. The camp was ready, but Lyra's nerves were frayed, her pregnancy making every movement a conscious effort. We're as ready as we'll get, Sable said, her voice low. If Rin's intel is right, Brant's hitting the western pass. We'll funnel them into the traps. Magnus nodded, his bow ready. Gavric's rebels will flank them once they're caught. We just need to hold the line. Lyra's hand rested on her dagger, her eyes scanning the horizon. Something feels off, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It's too quiet. Before Sable could respond, a scream tore through the camp. A rogue scout stumbled from the trees, blood streaming from a gash in his side. Betrayal, he gasped, collapsing. They're coming from the south. Sable's face hardened. South? That's not possible. Rin said west. Kale sprinted up, his face pale. It's Rin. He turned. Sold us out to Zane. Lyra's heart sank, her grip tightening on her dagger. Rin? But his sister, Lila. Zane must have gotten to him. Magnus growled, his eyes blazing. Promised him something, safety, rank, who knows. Sable cursed, her scar twisting. We're exposed. The South's barely defended. If they hit us now, the valley erupted, Zane's Ironclaw warriors charging from the southern trees. Their howls shattering the dawn. Brant led them, his blade gleaming, a cruel smile on his face. Lyra's blood ran cold. Zane was there, his massive frame cutting through the mist, his eyes locked on her. Lyra. Zane roared, his voice carrying. Over the chaos. You can't hide that pup forever. Come to me, and I'll spare your rogue friends. Magnus stepped in front of her, his arrow trained on Zane. Over my dead body. Sable barked orders, her rogues scrambling to meet the attack. Gavric and Lila rallied the Omegas, their makeshift. Weapons raised, but the Ironclaw warriors were relentless, cutting through the defenses. Lyra fought beside Magnus, her dagger flashing, but her pregnancy slowed her, each movement a struggle. We can't hold them. Kale shouted, his staff bloodied as he fended off an attacker. We need to fall back. No, Lyra said, her voice fierce. We hold the line. For the Omegas, for our pup. Magnus fired, his arrow striking an Ironclaw warrior, but Zane was closing in, his blade drawn. You're mine, Lyra, he snarled. Pup or no pup. Lyra's wolf surged, her dagger slashing at Zane's arm. He roared, grabbing her wrist, but Magnus tackled him, the two rolling into the dirt. Lyra screamed, diving to help, but Sable pulled her back. Let him handle it. Sable snapped. Get to the ridge. We need you alive. Lyra hesitated, the bond screaming for Magnus, but she ran, Sable and Kale covering her. The camp was a battlefield, rogues and Omegas fighting desperately. As they reached the ridge, Lyra turned, her heart stopping as she saw Magnus pinned by Zane, blood on his face. Magnus, she screamed, starting back, but Sable held her fast. He's not done yet, Sable said, her voice hard. Trust him. Magnus roared, his wolf breaking free as he threw Zane off, his dagger sinking into the Ironclaw Alpha's shoulder. Zane retreated, cursing, as Sable's rogues pushed back the warriors. The battle paused, both sides bloodied, but Lyra knew it was only a reprieve. We've got to regroup, Sable said, her eyes blazing. Rin's betrayal cost us, but we're still standing. Lyra nodded, her hand on her abdomen, her eyes on Magnus as he limped toward her. We're not done, she said, her voice a vow. Not yet. The rogue camp was a scene of devastation, the ground littered with blood and broken weapons. Lyra knelt beside Magnus in Alara's infirmary tent, her hands trembling as she helped. His mother cleaned the gash on his cheek. The battle had been a draw. Zane's warriors had retreated, but the rogues had lost 6 fighters, and the Omegas were shaken. Sable was outside, barking orders to reinforce the defenses, while Kale and Gavrik scouted for signs of another attack. Lila tended to the wounded Omegas, her fierce resolve unwavering despite the chaos. Magnus winced as Alara applied a poultice, his hand finding Lyra's. "I'm fine," he said, his voice rough. "Just a scratch." Lyra's eyes burned, her voice breaking. "You could have died, Magnus. Zane had you pinned." "But he didn't win," Magnus said, his blue eyes fierce. "I'm here, Lyra. For you. For our pup." Alara's hands paused, her gaze soft but stern. "You both need to be smarter. Love's worth fighting for, but it's got a cost. You keep throwing yourselves at Zane, you'll pay it." Lyra nodded, her throat tight. "I know, but I can't. Let him take everything. Our pup, our future." Magnus squeezed her hand, his voice low. "He won't. I killed one of his enforcers out there, Lyra. I didn't want to, but I had to protect you." Lyra's heart ached, seeing the weight in his eyes. "You did what you had to. But it's changing you, Magnus. I can see it." He looked away, his jaw tight. "Maybe it is. But I'd do it again. For you." Alara sighed, tying off the bandage. "You're your father's son, Magnus. He fought for me, too, and it cost him everything. Don't let it cost you the same." Before Lyra could respond, Sable stormed in, her face grim. "We've got a problem. One of my rogues, Dren, has been talking to Zane's scouts. He's the one who tipped them off about the south approach." Lyra's blood ran cold. "Another traitor?" Sable nodded, her scar twitching. "He's in chains now, but the damage is done. Zane knows our weaknesses. He'll hit us again, and soon." Kale entered, his grin gone. "Rin's betrayal was bad enough, but Dren? We can't trust anyone now." Gavrik followed, his scarred jaw tight. "Not true. The Omegas are solid, and Lila's keeping them in line. But we need a new plan, fast." Lyra stood, her hand on her abdomen. "We hit them first. A small group. Me, Magnus, Kale, Gavrik. We take out their scouts, disrupt their plans. Buy time. For the camp." Sable's eyes narrowed. "You're pregnant, Blackthorn. You're not going anywhere." "I'm not helpless," Lyra snapped. "This is my fight, too." Magnus stood, his voice firm. "She's right. We do this together, or we lose everything." Sable sighed, rubbing her scar. "Fine, but I'm coming with you. We move tonight, hit their scouts before they regroup." Alara's voice was quiet, but sharp. "Be careful, all of you. This pup needs its parents." Lyra nodded, the bond with Magnus a steady pulse. The cost of their love was mounting, but they'd pay it. Together, the forest was silent, the air heavy with the scent of pine and impending rain. Lyra, Magnus, Sable, Kale, and Gavrik moved through the shadows, their steps light as they tracked Zane's scouts. The rogue camp was a day's march behind, guarded by Lila and the Omegas, with Alara tending the wounded. The plan was simple: disrupt Zane's reconnaissance, sow chaos, and delay the next attack. But Lyra's pregnancy slowed her, her body aching with every step. Sable led the way, her dagger drawn, her eyes scanning the trees. "They're close," she whispered. "I can smell them, Ironclaw stench." Magnus' bow was ready, his voice low. "Stay behind me, Lyra. If it goes south, I can handle myself," Lyra said, her dagger gleaming. "Focus on the scouts." Kale grinned, his staff in hand. "Let's make this quick. I've got a date with a venison stew back at camp." Gavrik snorted, his eyes sharp. "Keep dreaming, rogue." They found the scouts' camp, a small fire. 3 Ironclaw warriors eating rations. Sable signaled, and they struck, swift and silent. Magnus' arrows took out 2 before they could react, while Sable and Gavrik dispatched the 3rd. But as they searched the bodies, a messenger wolf burst from the trees, clutching a sealed parchment. "Stop him!" Lyra shouted, sprinting despite her body's protests. Kale tackled the messenger, pinning him as Lyra snatched the parchment. Her hands trembled as she broke the seal. "It's from Torin," she said, her voice hollow. "An ultimatum." Magnus was at her side, his face pale. "Read it." Lyra's voice shook as she read aloud. "Lyra Blackthorn, Return to the pack and face judgment, or I'll destroy the rogue camp and everyone in it. Your Omega and his kin are forfeit. You have one day." Sable cursed, her scar twisting. He's not bluffing. Torrens prides on the line, and Zane's egging him on. Kale released the messenger, who scrambled away. What now? We can't go back, and we can't hold the camp against Torrens full force. Gavrick's voice was grim. The rebels in the pack might help, but we need to reach them. Rin's betrayal cut us off, but there's still hope. Lyra's eyes burned, her hand on her abdomen. I can't go back. He'll kill Magnus, our pup. Magnus pulled her close, his voice fierce. We won't let that happen. We'll find a way, rally the rebels, fortify the camp. We're not done. Sable nodded, her eyes hard. We move back to camp, prepare for the worst. Lyra, you're the key. If you can sway Torrens' wolves, we might survive. Lyra met Magnus. Gaze, the bond a lifeline. Then we fight. For our pup, for the pack we're building. As they turned back to the camp, Torrens' ultimatum hung over them, a shadow of the war to come. Lyra's defiance had sparked a rebellion, but the cost was rising, and the choice between love and survival was tearing her apart. The rogue camp was a fortress of defiance, its rocky valley bristling with traps and makeshift barricades. Lyra stood at the center, her hand resting on her rounded abdomen, the weight of her pregnancy a constant reminder of the stakes. The air was thick with the scent of pine, sweat, and steel as rogues and freed Omegas trained relentlessly. Magnus was beside her, his bow in hand, his blue eyes scanning the camp's defenses. Sable, the rogue leader, barked orders nearby, her scar glinting in the fading sunlight. Kale, Gavrick, and Lila coordinated the fighters, while Alara prepared. Healing supplies in a tent, her steady presence a lifeline for the wounded. Torrens' ultimatum hung over them, a shadow of impending war. One day, that was all they had before his forces attacked. Lyra's heart pounded, but she kept her chin high, her silver hair catching the light as she addressed the camp. We're not just fighting for ourselves, she called, her voice carrying over the bustle. We're fighting for a pack where rank doesn't chain us, where love isn't a crime. Torren wants to crush us, but we'll show him we're stronger. The rogues and Omegas roared, their resolve hardening. Lila, Rin's sister, stepped forward, her eyes fierce. We're with you, Lyra. For the Omegas, for freedom. Gavrick nodded, his scarred jaw tight. The rebels in Blackthorn are ready. I got word from a runner. They'll strike from within when Torren attacks, disrupt his lines. Sable crossed her arms, her amber eyes narrowing. That's a start, but Torren's got numbers. Zane's Ironclaw warriors are brutal, and Brant's leading them. We need every advantage. Magnus' hand found Lyra's, his voice low. We've got the valley's terrain, narrow passes, high ground. We'll use traps to slow them, then hit hard. Lyra nodded, though her pregnancy made her feel vulnerable. I want to fight, Sable. I'm not sitting this out. Sable's scar twitched, but her tone softened. You're carrying a pup. Blackthorn, you're a symbol, not a soldier. Stay on the ridge, direct the archers. You're no good to us dead. She's right, Alara said, approaching with a pouch of herbs. Lyra, you're strong, but you're not invincible. Let Magnus and the others take the front line. Lyra's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Fine, but I'm not hiding. I'll lead from the ridge. Kale grinned, tossing a dagger in the air. That's the spirit. I'll stick with the ground troops. Keep Gavrick and Lila from getting cocky. Gavrick snorted, his eyes glinting. Cocky? I'm just ready to. Stick it to Brant. Lila smirked, her dagger gleaming. And I owe Rin a punch for betraying us. Magnus squeezed Lyra's hand, his voice a whisper. We'll get through this. For our pup. Lyra met his gaze, the bond flaring. Together. As night fell, the camp buzzed with preparations, traps set, weapons sharpened, plans finalized. Sable pulled Lyra aside, her voice low. You've got these wolves believing in you, Blackthorn. Don't let them down. I won't, Lyra said, her resolve steel. The war was coming, and she'd fight for her pack, her true pack, with everything she had. The rogue camp slept uneasily, the valley cloaked in darkness save for the flicker of watchfires. Lyra lay in a tent with Magnus, her head on his chest, the bond a steady pulse between them. Her pregnancy kept her restless, the pup's movements a reminder of the future they fought for. Outside, Sable patrolled with Gavrick, while Kale and Lila took turns on watch. Alara rested nearby, her herbs ready for the bloodshed to come. A scout's whistle broke the silence, sharp and urgent. Lyra sat up, her heart racing as Magnus grabbed his bow. "What's that?" she whispered. "Trouble," he said, pulling her to her feet. They emerged to find Sable and Kale with a rogue scout, his face bloodied. "Zane's warriors hit our outer traps," the scout gasped. "They're not waiting for Torin. Zane's moving now." Sable cursed, her scar twisting. "He's splitting us. Wants to take Lyra before Torin gets here." Lyra's blood ran cold. "He's using me to undermine my father. If he gets me, he'll claim Blackthorn." Magnus' grip tightened on his bow. "He won't touch you." "Kale, how many?" 20, maybe more," Kale said, his grin gone. "They're circling the south ridge. Gavrick's rebels can't help yet. They're still in Blackthorn." Lila appeared, her dagger drawn. "We can hold them. The Omegas are ready." Sable nodded, her voice sharp. "Lyra, to the ridge with the archers. Magnus, you're with me on the ground. Kale, Lila, Gavrick, take the flanks. Move." Lyra hesitated, her eyes on Magnus. "Be careful," she whispered. He kissed her fiercely, the bond flaring. "Always. Keep our pups safe." Lyra climbed to the ridge, her dagger in hand, joining a line of rogue archers. Below, Zane's warriors emerged, their armor glinting in the moonlight. Zane led them, his scarred face a mask of ambition. "Lyra," he shouted, his voice echoing. "I know you're up there. Come down, and I'll spare your rogues. I'll even raise your pup as my own." Lyra's stomach churned, but she shouted back, her voice ringing. "You'll never have me, Zane. Or my pup. This ends tonight." The archers fired, arrows raining down as Sable's rogues met Zane's warriors in a clash of steel and claws. Magnus fought like a demon, his arrows finding their marks, while Kale and Lila flanked the enemy, their speed keeping them alive. Gavrick's strength held the line, but Zane was relentless, cutting through rogues with brutal precision. From the ridge, Lyra directed the archers, her voice steady despite her fear. "Aim for their legs. Slow them down." But Zane's eyes locked on her, his smirk cold. "He's coming for me," Lyra whispered, her hand on her abdomen. A rogue archer, a young woman named Vey, grabbed her arm. "Stay focused, Lyra. We've got your back." The fight raged, but Zane's ambition was clear. He wanted Lyra, not just victory. As he broke through the line, heading for the ridge, Lyra knew she couldn't run. She drew her dagger, ready to face him, the bond with Magnus. Her only anchor. Dawn broke over the valley, painting the sky blood-red as Torin's forces joined Zane's, their combined might crashing into the rogue camp. Lyra stood on the ridge, her heart pounding as she directed the archers, her pregnancy slowing her. But not her resolve. Below, Magnus fought beside Sable, his bow a blur, while Kale, Gavrick, and Lila led the Omegas and rogues in a desperate defense. Alara worked in the infirmary tent, her hands bloodied as she tended the wounded. Torin's howl echoed, a command that shook the valley. His warriors, led by Brant, charged the camp's center, while Zane's Ironclaw fighters hit the flanks. The rogues' traps, pitfalls, and snares slowed the enemy, but the sheer numbers were overwhelming. "Hold the line," Sable shouted, her dagger flashing as she cut down a warrior. "Don't let them through." Magnus fired, his arrow striking Brant's shoulder, but the enforcer barely flinched, his eyes locked on Lyra. "You're mine, traitor!" Brant roared, charging the ridge. Lyra's archers fired, but Brant dodged, his speed uncanny. She gripped her dagger, her voice steady. "Vey, cover the left. Keep them pinned." Vey nodded, her bow steady. "We've got this, Lyra." Kale and Lila fought back to back, their teamwork keeping the Omegas alive, while Gavrick rallied the rebels who'd joined from Blackthorn, their numbers bolstering the defense. But Zane was the true threat, his massive frame cutting through the rogues, his eyes fixed on Lyra. "Lyra!" Magnus shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Get back!" She shook her head, her dagger raised. "I'm not running." Zane reached the ridge, his blade gleaming. "You should have taken my offer," he snarled. "Now your pup dies with you." Lyra lunged, her dagger slashing at his arm, but Zane was too fast, grabbing her wrist. She screamed, the bond flaring as Magnus sprinted toward her, his bow discarded for a blade. Sable joined him, her dagger a blur, and together they drove Zane back, blood streaming from his wounds. The battle raged, the valley a chaos of blood and howls. Gavrick's rebels struck from within Torin's ranks, sowing confusion, while Kale and Lila held the flanks. Lyra retreated to the ridge's edge, her breath ragged, her hand on her abdomen. The pup was safe, but the fight was far from over. Fall back. Sable shouted, her voice hoarse. Regroup at the camp's heart. Lyra directed the archers to cover the retreat, her eyes on Magnus as he fought his way to her. The bond burned. A vow to survive, for their pup, for their pack. The battle paused as both sides regrouped, the valley littered with the fallen. Lyra stood on the ridge, her dagger bloodied, her body aching from the strain of her pregnancy. Magnus was at her side, his face bruised but his eyes fierce. Sable, Kale, Gavrick, and Lila gathered below, their forces battered but holding. Alara emerged from the infirmary tent, her hands stained with blood, her expression grim. Torin appeared at the valley's edge, his massive frame silhouetted against the rising sun. His gray eyes locked on Lyra, a mix of rage and pain in his gaze. Lyra, he roared, his voice shaking the air. End this madness. Come back, and we'll find a way. Lyra's heart twisted, but she stepped forward, her voice ringing. There's no going back, father. You wanted to sell me to Zane, to crush Magnus. I'm fighting for my pup, for my mate. Torin's face crumpled, a rare crack in his armor. You're my daughter, he said, his voice breaking. I wanted you safe, not this chaos. Magnus stepped beside Lyra, his blade raised. You made your choice, Torin. You sent Brant, Zane. You'd kill our pup to save your pride. Torin's eyes flicked to Magnus, then back to Lyra. Is it true? You're carrying his pup. Lyra's hand rested on her abdomen, her voice steady. Yes, and I'll die before I let you take it. The valley fell silent, Torin's warriors hesitating. Brant snarled, stepping forward. She's a traitor, Alpha. Let me end this. But Torin raised a hand, silencing him. Enough, Brant. Lyra, I was wrong. But this rebellion ends now. Lyra's eyes burned, but she held his gaze. It's not a rebellion. It's a new pack. One where Omegas aren't crushed, where love matters more than politics. Sable joined them, her dagger still bloodied. She's right, Torin. Your pack's fracturing. Half your wolves are ready to join us. Stand down or lose everything. Torin hesitated, his gaze locked on Lyra. Then Zane's voice cut through, sharp and mocking. Weak, Torin. You let your daughter defy you? I'll take her myself. Zane charged, but Magnus was faster, tackling him to the ground. The two fought, blades clashing, until Lyra's scream stopped them. Enough, she shouted, her voice raw. Zane, you're done. Father, if you love me, let us go. Torin's shoulders sagged, his voice low. I can't lose you, Lyra. Then don't, she said, tears streaming. Choose me. Choose peace. Torin's hesitation gave Magnus the chance to pin Zane, his blade at the Ironclaw Alpha's throat. The battle paused, all eyes on Torin, waiting for his choice. The valley was a tense standoff, the air thick with blood and anticipation. Lyra stood on the ridge, her dagger in hand, her pregnancy a quiet strength despite her exhaustion. Magnus held Zane pinned, his blade steady, while Sable, Kale, Gavrick, and Lila rallied the rogues and Omegas. Alara watched from the infirmary tent, her hands ready for more wounded. Torin stood at the valley's edge, his warriors wavering, the rebels among them whispering of defection. Zane struggled under Magnus' blade, his scarred face twisted with rage. You think you've won, Omega? He spat. Torin will never let you keep her. Lyra stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. You're wrong, Zane. You wanted me to control Blackthorn, to betray my father. I see through you. Zane's eyes narrowed, but he laughed, a cold, grating sound. And you think your father's any better? He'd sell you to me to save his pack. Torin's growl silenced him, his gray eyes blazing. Enough, Zane. You've poisoned this alliance from the start. Lyra seized the moment, her voice ringing. Father, Zane's been playing you. He sent Rin to betray us, used Drin to attack the camp. He doesn't want an alliance. He wants your throne. The rebels in Torin's ranks murmured, their weapons lowering. Brant snarled, stepping forward. Lies. She's a traitor, Alpha. But Gavrick's voice cut through, strong and clear. She's telling the truth. I heard Zane's plans. Rin confessed before he fled. He's using you, Torin. Sable nodded, her dagger raised. Check his pack, Torin. You'll find proof, letters, plans. He's been plotting to overthrow you. Torin's face hardened, his gaze flicking to Zane. Is this true? Zane's smirk faltered, but he didn't answer. Lyra saw her chance. Stepping closer. Search him, father. End this. Torin nodded to his warriors, who pinned Zane as they rifled through his pack. A sealed letter emerged, its contents damning. Plans to depose Torin after marrying Lyra. The pack gasped, and Brant's face paled, his loyalty shaken. You bastard. Torin growled, his fist slamming into Zane's jaw. You'd betray me for power. Zane spat blood, his eyes defiant. You're weak, Torin. You let your daughter ruin you. Magnus pressed his blade harder, his voice low. You're done, Zane. Lyra stepped forward, her dagger gleaming. Let him go, Magnus. He's not worth it. Magnus hesitated, then stepped back, letting Torin's warriors drag Zane away. The Ironclaw Alpha's forces retreated there. Leader exposed. The valley fell silent, the battle won without further blood. Lyra turned to Torin, her voice soft. Father, please. Let us build something new. Torin's eyes softened, a father's love breaking through. I need time, Lyra. She nodded, tears falling. Take it, but we're not your enemies. Magnus pulled her close, the bond a lifeline. The war wasn't over, but Zane's downfall was a victory, and a step toward peace. The rogue camp was a patchwork of recovery, its valley scarred from the recent battle. Lyra sat on a log by a small fire, her hand resting on her rounded abdomen, the pup's gentle kicks a reminder of the future she and Magnus fought for. The air was heavy, with the scent of damp earth and healing herbs, the camp bustling as rogues and freed Omegas repaired defenses and tended wounds. Magnus sat beside her, his arm bandaged but his blue eyes bright with determination. Sable, the rogue leader, coordinated repairs, her scar glinting as she barked orders. Kale, Gavrik, and Lila worked with the Omegas, their spirits high despite the losses. Alara, Magnus' mother, moved among the wounded, her herbal knowledge a lifeline. Zane's downfall had shifted the tide, his treachery exposed by the letters found in his pack. Torin had retreated with his warriors, his ultimatum unfulfilled, but the truce was fragile. Brant, Torin's enforcer, had been stripped of rank for his blind loyalty to Zane, replaced by Gavrik, who now led the Blackthorn rebels. Rin, the traitor guard, had fled, his whereabouts unknown. The camp buzzed with hope, but Lyra knew her. Father's pride would not yield easily. We bought time, Magnus said, his hand covering hers. But Torin's not done. He'll come for you again. Lyra nodded, her silver hair catching the firelight. I know, but we've got Gavrik's rebels now, and Sable's rogues. We're stronger. Sable approached, her amber eyes sharp. Stronger, maybe, but not invincible. My scouts say Torin's regrouping at the settlement. He's lost face, and that makes him dangerous. Kale joined them, his grin sly despite a fresh cut on his cheek. Gavrik's got the rebels stirring up trouble in Blackthorn. Half the pack's whispering about joining us. Your speech hit hard, Lyra. Lyra's heart lifted, but fear lingered. They're risking everything. If my father catches them. They know the stakes, Gavrik said, striding up with Lila at his side. His scarred jaw was set, his voice firm. The Omegas, the hunters, they're done with Torin's rule. You and Magnus gave them hope. Lila nodded, her eyes fierce. My brother's betrayal hurt, but it woke people up. They see what Torin's become. Alara emerged from a tent, her hands stained with herb juice. Hope's powerful, but it's not enough. Lyra, you're carrying a pup. You need rest, not just for you, but for the future of this pack. Lyra's jaw tightened. I can't rest while Torin's out there. We need to solidify this alliance, make the rebels and rogues one pack. Sable's scar twitched, a rare smile breaking through. You're starting to sound like a leader, Blackthorn. All right, let's call a council. Rogues, Omegas, rebels, we plan our next move together. Magnus squeezed Lyra's hand, his voice low. You're doing this, Lyra. You're building something new. She met his gaze, the bond flaring. We're building it. For our pup. The council convened under the stars. Rogues and Omegas gathered around a fire. Sable spoke first, her voice commanding. Torin's weak, but he's not broken. We need a united front. Rogues, rebels, omegas. Lyra, Magnus, you're the heart of this. What's the plan? Lyra stood, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. We reach out to the pack. Send a message, peace, not war. If Torin won't listen, we'll rally his wolves to us. Gavrik nodded. I can get word to the settlement. The rebels are ready to act. Kale grinned. And I'll sneak in, stir the pot. Nothing like a little chaos to sway a pack. Sable's eyes gleamed. Do it. But we prepare for war, just in case. Lyra, you and Magnus stay central. Symbols don't fight on the front lines. Lyra bristled, but Magnus' hand on her arm steadied her. We'll do what's needed, he said. For the pack. As the council dispersed, Lyra leaned into Magnus, the bond a lifeline. The truce was fragile, but their new pack was taking shape, a family forged in defiance. The forest was cloaked in dawn mist as Kale slipped toward the Blackthorn settlement, a sealed message from Lyra tucked in his tunic. The rogue camp was a day's march behind, fortified but tense, waiting for Torin's next move. Lyra sat with Magnus in their tent, her pregnancy slowing her, but not her resolve. Sable trained the rogues, while Gavrik and Lila drilled the Omegas, their makeshift pack growing stronger. Alara worked tirelessly, her herbs easing the wounded's pain, her presence a quiet anchor. Kale's mission was simple but perilous. Deliver Lyra's message to the Blackthorn rebels, urging them to defect peacefully. The message offered amnesty and a new pack under Lyra and Magnus' leadership, a vision of equality Torin had never allowed. But the settlement was on high alert, and Kale's rogue status made him a target. Lyra paced the tent, her hand on her abdomen. I should have gone with him, she said, her voice tight. Kale's risking too much. Magnus pulled her close, his cedar scent calming her. Kale's slippery as a fox. He'll get through. You need to stay here, for the pup. She sighed, leaning into him. I hate waiting. If Torin catches him, he won't, Magnus said, his voice firm. Kale's got Gavrik's contacts, rebels. He'll cover him. Sable entered, her scar glinting. You two brooding again? Kale's fine. My scouts are watching the trails. He's got backup. Lyra nodded, but her worry lingered. What if the rebels don't listen? What if they're too scared? Sable's lips curved. You've got alpha blood, Blackthorn. Your words carry weight. Those rebels want what you're offering. They just need a push. Alara joined them, her hands full of herb pouches. Lyra, you're carrying a symbol of hope. That pup's proof a new pack is possible. Trust Kale to spread the word. Before Lyra could respond, a rogue scout burst in, breathless. Kale's back, but he's hurt. Brant's men ambushed him. Lyra's heart sank as they rushed to the camp's edge, where Kale limped in, blood streaming from a gash on his arm. Gavrik and Lila supported him, their faces grim. I got through. Kale gasped, grinning despite the pain. Delivered. The message. The rebels are ready. Half the pack's defecting tonight. Lyra knelt beside him, relief mixing with fear. You're an idiot, Kale. You could have died. Worth it, he said, wincing as Alara cleaned his wound. Got a response, too. From Mara, she's with us. Lyra's eyes widened. Elder Mara? She's joining the rebels? Kale nodded. Says she's done with Torin's tyranny. She's bringing healers, supplies. They'll meet us at the old mill by midnight. Magnus' jaw tightened. It's a risk. If Brant's men followed Kale, Sable's voice was sharp. Then we move now. Gavrik, Lila, get the Omegas ready. We meet Mara at the mill. Bring her people in. Lyra stood, her hand on her dagger. I'm coming. No, Sable snapped. You're pregnant, and you're our symbol. Stay here. Magnus' hand found hers, his voice low. She's right, Lyra. I'll go with them. Keep the camp safe. Lyra's eyes burned, but she nodded. Come back to me, Magnus. He kissed her, the bond flaring. Always. As Magnus, Sable, Gavrik, and Lila headed for the mill, Lyra stayed with Alara, her heart heavy. Kale's risk had paid off, but the night was far from over. The old mill stood at the edge of Blackthorn territory, its crumbling walls shrouded in mist. Magnus led the group, Sable, Gavrik, and Lila, through the forest, their steps silent. Despite the tension, the rogue camp was secure under Lyra's watch, with Alara and the Omegas holding the defenses. Kale, bandaged but stubborn, had insisted on joining, his staff in hand. The meeting with Mara and the Blackthorn rebels was a gamble, but it could tip the scales. Sable crouched by the mill's entrance, her dagger gleaming. "Mara's late," she whispered. "If this is a trap." "It's not," Gavrik said, his scarred jaw tight. "Mara's been against Torin for years. She'll come." Lila's eyes scanned the trees, her voice low. "My brother's out. They're somewhere. If Rin's with Torin," Kale's grin was sharp. "Then we deal with him." "Focus, Lila." Magnus' thoughts were on Lyra. The bond a steady pulse despite the distance. "We get Mara's people and get out," he said. "No. Heroics." A rustle in the bushes made them tense, but Mara emerged, her silver-streaked hair glinting. She led a dozen rebels, healers, hunters, and a few warriors, carrying supplies. Her sharp eyes found Magnus. "You're Alara's boy," she said. "Lyra's mate." Magnus nodded, his bow ready. "We're here for you, Elder. Let's move." Mara's lips curved. Lyra's message was bold. Half the pack's ready to follow her, but Torin's tightening his grip. Brant's replacement, a warrior named Torin, is worse, loyal to a fault. Sable's scar twitched. "Then we hit fast. Get your people to the camp before Torin notices." Mara nodded, but a howl split the night. Torin's warriors, closing in. "Ambush," Gavrik shouted, drawing his blade. The mill erupted into chaos, Torin's warriors charging from the trees. Magnus fired, his arrows finding marks, while Sable and Lila fought with deadly precision. Kale's staff whirled, keeping the healers safe, while Gavrik rallied the rebels. Mara wielded a staff, her age belying her strength, but the enemy was relentless. "Fall back," Sable shouted, her dagger bloodied. "To the camp." Magnus grabbed Mara's arm, pulling her through the fray. "Lyra needs you," he said, his voice fierce. "Stay alive." Mara nodded, her grip tightening on her staff. "I will. For Lyra and her pup." The group fought their way back to the forest, the rebels carrying their wounded and supplies. Torin's warriors pursued, but Sable's traps slowed them, giving the group time to reach the camp. Magnus' heart pounded, the bond urging him back to Lyra. The rebels were with them, but the cost of the ambush was heavy. 2 healers lost, their supplies damaged as they reached the camp. Lyra ran to Magnus, her eyes wide with relief. "You're back," she breathed, clinging to him. "Mara." "Here," Mara said, stepping forward, her face grim but resolute. "We've got your rebels, Lyra. Now let's build that pack." Lyra nodded, her hand on her abdomen. "We will. For all of us." The bond flared, a promise of the future they'd fight for, but Torin's ambush was a warning. Torin's grip was tightening, and the final battle loomed. The rogue camp swelled with new faces as Mara's rebels integrated, their healers bolstering Alara's efforts, their hunters and warriors training alongside Sable's rogues and the Freed Omegas. Lyra stood at the camp's heart, her pregnancy a visible symbol of hope, her silver hair catching the sunlight as she addressed the gathered wolves. "You've chosen freedom," she said, her voice ringing. "This pack, rogues, Omegas, rebels, is ours. We'll fight for it, together." The crowd roared, their spirits high despite the looming threat of Torin's forces. Magnus stood beside Lyra, his arm around her, the bond a steady anchor. Sable coordinated defenses, her scar a testament to her resolve, while Kale, Gavrik, and Lila trained the new recruits. Alara worked tirelessly, her herbs easing the wounded's pain, while Mara offered counsel, her wisdom grounding the camp. "We've got numbers now," Sable said, joining Lyra and Magnus by the fire. Mara's rebels tipped the scales, but Torin's not done. Torin's a fanatic. He'll come for blood. Lyra's hand rested on her abdomen, her voice firm. "Then we're ready. This camp is our home, our pack. We won't let him take it." Magnus nodded, his blue eyes fierce. "Gavrik's rebels are spreading word in the settlement. More will join us. We just need to hold out." Kale grinned, tossing a dagger in the air. "Torin's got no idea what he's up against. We've got heart, something he'll never understand." Gavrik approached, his scarred jaw set. "The rebels are ready to strike from within if Torin attacks. But we need a plan to draw him out, make him overcommit." Mara's voice was calm but sharp. "Use Lyra's pup. Announce it publicly, call it a new alpha's heir. It'll force Torin's hand, make him act rashly. Lyra's heart skipped, but she nodded. It's risky, but it could work. If we push him to attack on our terms. Magnus' grip tightened, his voice low. It puts you in danger, Lyra. The pup? Our pup is why we're fighting, Lyra said, her eyes burning. I'll do what it takes to keep it safe. Sable's scar twitched, a spark of respect in her eyes. Then we make it loud. Send runners to every pack. Blackthorn, Redfang, Shadowmoor. Let them know Lyra Blackthorn carries the true air. Lila stepped forward, her voice fierce. I'll carry the message myself. My brother's betrayal won't stop us. Alaris, hands paused, her eyes soft. Be careful, Lyra. This pup's the future, but you're its mother. You're needed. Lyra squeezed Alara's hand, the bond with Magnus steadying her. I know. We'll protect it, together. As the camp prepared, runners were sent, proclaiming Lyra's pregnancy and her new pack. The message spread like wildfire, sowing doubt in Tauren's ranks. But Tauren's loyalty to Tauren was unshaken, and the camp braced for the storm. The new pack was forming, but its survival hung on the edge of a blade. The valley was a fortress of defiance as Tauren's forces descended, their howls echoing through the dawn. Lyra stood on the ridge, her pregnancy slowing her, but her resolve unbreakable, her dagger gleaming as she directed the archers. Magnus was below, leading the ground troops with Sable, his bow a deadly extension of his will. Kale, Gavrik, and Lila fought alongside the rogues and Omegas, their makeshift pack united. Alara and Mara worked in the infirmary tent, their herbs ready for the bloodshed. The runner's message had worked. Rebels defected from Blackthorn, swelling the camp's ranks, but Tauren led a fanatical force, determined to crush them. Lyra's voice rang out, rallying the archers. Hold the ridge, aim for their flanks. Her hand rested on her abdomen, the pup's kicks fueling her fire. Below, Magnus fired, his arrows striking true, while Sable's daggers flashed, cutting through Tauren's warriors. Kale's staff whirled, Lila's blade danced, and Gavrik's strength held the line. The valley's traps, pitfalls, snares, slowed the enemy, but Tauren's ferocity was relentless. Lyra. Tauren's voice boomed, his blade bloodied. Your rebellion ends today. Lyra's eyes narrowed, her voice cutting through the chaos. This isn't rebellion, Tauren. It's a new pack, one you'll never break. Magnus fought his way to the ridge, his face bloodied but fierce. Stay back, Lyra. Let us handle him. She shook her head, her dagger raised. I'm not hiding. This is our fight. The battle raged, the valley a chaos of blood and steel. Gavrik's rebels struck from within Tauren's ranks, sowing confusion, while Kale and Lila held the flanks. Sable's rogues fought like demons, their traps cutting down Tauren's men. But Tauren reached the ridge, his eyes locked on Lyra. You're no Alpha's heir, he snarled, lunging. You're a traitor's whore. Magnus tackled him, their blades clashing as Lyra directed the archers to cover them. Fire, she shouted, arrows raining down. Tauren roared, his blade grazing Magnus' side, but Sable joined the fight, her dagger sinking into his thigh. Fall back. Sable shouted, her voice hoarse. We've got them. The tide turned as Tauren appeared, his massive frame parting. The fray. His gray eyes found Lyra, pain and pride warring. Enough, he roared, his voice shaking the valley. Lyra, end this. Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady. I'm building a pack for my pup, father. Join us, or lose everything. Tauren hesitated, his warriors faltering as rebels defected. Tauren lunged again, but Magnus and Sable pinned him, his defeat sealed. The battle paused, Tauren's eyes on Lyra's abdomen, a flicker of regret in his gaze. I can't fight you. Tauren said, his voice breaking. You're my daughter. Then choose peace, Lyra said, tears falling. For me, for your grandchild. Tauren lowered his blade, his warriors standing down. The valley fell silent, the new pack standing tall. Lyra and Magnus embraced, the bond flaring, their pup the heart of their victory. Tauren's truce was uncertain, but for now, their pack was safe, a family forged in blood and love.